Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night, opposition. What a wonderful night this is. What a wonderful night. I'm seeing people are on from 541. Tracy Barrow has been on. Opposition, fall in line. Let me tell you, this is our roadside parliament tonight. We can't go on the road. Lots of rain and lots of scheduling issues. But listen, we're here tonight. We're in the comfort of our homes, and it is roadside parliament tonight. Yes, man. Yes, man. We're going to break the fear. Listen, people. Listen, people. We're going to break the fear tonight. Sharon Kane, Joyan, Faith, and I'm putting the link in and I'm putting the number in. Listen, and we need you to call in. We go act like we down there at Baxter's Road. Hey, it's Austin's behind me, right? This is Austin's behind me. But we go, listen, this is roadside parliament at Baxter's Road, right? And what's the other road? I forgot the name of the other road right now, right? But listen, this is roadside parliament, Westbury Road, the corner of Baxter's Road and Westbury Road. That's where we are tonight. This is roadside parliament. Rameem, get ready to call in, Rameem. Get ready to call in. Break the fear, man. Break the fear and call in. Rameem is telling everybody, pleasant evening, loyal, patriotic opposition. Let's get our solution caps on. Time to strategize and enact new moves. We need multiple means of pulling things back. Operation Rescue and Restore BIM is on. I love me this, Rameem. Rameem, I love your vibe. You're catching my vibe, man. I love it, Rameem. I love it. Rameem, this is fire tonight. Fire tonight. Far and wide. Like and widely share this link to folks. Far and wide. Education on the mismanagement is needed. Operation Rescue BIM needs all the lions on board to fight for Barbados. Hey, Rameem, you catch it, Rameem, we on the same frequency. Rameem, listen, this woman, listen, you're in the show, you're in the seat here with me, Rameem. Rameem says, this is Rameem show. This is a Rameem show. Rameem says, like and widely share this link, folks. Far and wide. Education on the mismanagement is needed. Operation Rescue and Restore BIM needs all the lions on board to fight for Barbados. Stand up, patriots. Yes, patriots. Hey, I love it. Barbara Bowen says good night to all. Good night, opposition, Barbara. Loyal daughter. Good night, loyal opposition members. Please like and share links so we can reach others. Hey, we're standing up for a change in BIM. Good night, loyal people of the soil. Yes, Stefano, Damara. Yes. Serlene Clark. Serlene, a blessed good night. Unfortunately, my attempts to participate in yesterday's Zoom meeting were unsuccessful. We're going to talk about that Zoom meeting, Serlene. Yes, I was concerned, but I'm not disappointed. Somebody said, Marcia, please don't be disappointed. I'm not disappointed. I was just concerned. And I was just taking out the whip on you all. I was being the headmaster yesterday because Caswell wasn't there. So I was taking out the whip on you all. Sir Alfred, Benjamin, good night to one and all locked in from Brooklyn, New York City. New York City. I love the diaspora. I love the diaspora, and I am one who believes the diaspora should vote. I know we have differing opinions about it on here, but I'm of the opinion that the diaspora should vote. If we can take their barrels and we can go to Western Union and we can go and we can take their money at the MoneyGram, we should be able to take their vote. Yes. Oh, Kamar, good night, opposition. Hey, Kamar, good to see you, opposition members and leaders. Yes, victory. Alvin Simpson, good night. Mark Clark is in the house. Good night to all ops. Mark, man, is a faithful opposition. He takes care of the people. Yes, Wayne Austin, good night. Opposition, fall in line. Who calling in tonight? This is a number to call in on 850-8888. That is the number to call in tonight. And we can't take a WhatsApp call though, but you can just you can call a regular call on it, or what you can do, you can come in the studio with me. I would love that. I would love that. This is a number that you can call 850-888 if you want to participate. DJ Marcy. Marcy Spice, man. This is Marcy Spice. Call 1246-850-8888 if you want to participate. Yes, good night, everybody. Yes, yes, yes. The Costa Fields, lock on right here in BIM. Listen, you joining? You come on and call, man. Call in. Good night, everyone. Loyal daughter says she has the number saved to her phone. So, loyal daughter, we expect that you're going to call in tonight. And tonight we have Miss Maxine McLean is going to be on with us tonight. We're excited about that. And we also have, of course, we have Timar Stewart is going to be on tonight. And our general is not is under the weather tonight. And I told him I let you all know that he'll be back soon. Of course, you know, we always miss the general when he's on. You know, we miss him. We miss him. But listen, it's, you know what, guys, do you know that it is since July 30th? July 30th that I've been coming on at nights, 4 nights a week. Four nights a week. You know how many nights that is? Since July 30th, I always had, who remember that I always had a day show at 1 o'clock with my few little people watching? Who remember that? And it was on July 30th. I remember it so well. I was there laying down in my couch, finished my garden, laying down my couch, say I'm gonna get a rest. And someone called me to deal with a topic that I had no interest in, pensions. And I told him, I'm not interested in that. I'm sorry, I don't know. I told him I was too respectful. I said, you know, I don't know anything about that. But you know what they didn't know is that I told my husband, like, can I confess to you all? I told my husband the night before. We were coming from the school, driving home after classes, and he started to talk. Did you hear about this thing with the pensions? And I said, Dave, I am not interested. I really am not interested. I said, Bajans, you all need to deal with your stuff. And I'm not. I can't, you know, I feel like I'm dragging people and I'm not interested. I don't want to hear anything about it. He started talking, I started to make calls on my way home. I told him I'm not interested. And I did not say anything else about that topic. And he kept talking about it though. Because I guess, you know, that's the Bajan, you know, he loves his country and he was talking about it. And I was saying, it's not that I didn't love the country, but I don't know anything about the topic. And I find that people don't, sometimes you stick your neck out and nobody comes up in the rear to, you know, they leave you out there by yourself. So I was like, So I was here laying down in my bed and someone called and said to me, Marcia, can we borrow your link? I said, borrow my link for what? She said, no. She said, are you going on tonight? You have a show tonight? I said, no, my show is 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. She says, you know, would you mind going on and talk about the pensions and the reform and NIS? And I told her, I said, I don't know anything about that. You know, and I was like, please, in my mind, I have no interest and I'm not going on. I'm not going to go back for Barbados and Barbados not interested. I said, no. And she said, all right, this is how she got me. She said, well, you know, this thing is happening. There's no brass tacks because it's a holiday coming up. It was July 30th, August 1st will be the holiday. Kadooment was coming up. And she said they're planning to pass it on Tuesday. And there's no brass tacks. There's nothing for the people to say anything. And that's what she said when she said that. She said, there is no voice for the people. She said, Marcia, there is no voice for the people. And when she said that, I tell you, my loyal opposition, when she said that, it's when something tugged at my heart. And I said, okay. And she said, you don't have to say anything. Just lend, if you can lend a group of us the platform, just start it up and we will talk. And I will get people. She said, I'll get people. I said, okay, if you all do that, then I'm fine, because I don't know anything. And I went back to, she said, bye. I went back to lay down and I prayed about it. And I prayed about it and I just jumped up and I got to my computer and I started to write. And actually, I'm going to show you the show that I'm just going to put it in and show you what I wrote at that time in this is the first one, guys. This is the first one. I'm sure you're seeing my show there. That's me with a different hairstyle. And we are at this now. This was July 30th. This is the first night show, 7 o'clock show. 15,308 views. Streamed live on the 30th of July, 2023. Didn't know at that time that this would be something I would be doing 4 nights a week. And I wrote at that time. I wrote when I jumped off. I prayed. I wrote this. Let your voices be heard, Barbados. No, let your voices be heard. Barbados, wake up. There is no opposition in government, and with a Senate that supports the government, with a few independent senators assigned by the same government, it is no wonder the pension and NIS bill will most likely be passed in the Senate on Wednesday. But why rush to pass the bill in the Senate when there definitely will be no opportunity for public input, as Monday and Tuesday are holidays? This has been done in the middle of crop over and after 2 days of public holidays, partying and fetes. Barbadians, wake up. Is this deliberate? Log into the program and let your voices be heard. That was it. Who was on for the first program? Who came on for that first program? Listen, and I was on, and when I came on, believe it or not, I was shocked. First of all, from the time I came on, there were 50 people. If I remember well, 50 people were waiting on the program. And I had made the program only, I would say probably 4 hours or so. And I came on, there were 50 persons. And then all of a sudden I saw it shot up to 700. I said, and I'm saying to myself, hold on. Is something is wrong with here? This is not correct. This is not correct. This is not correct. And the rest is history. July 30th. And it's been 4 programs a night. I don't know where I get the strength to do 3 hours. The same woman who told my husband, believe it or not, Remy and Pedro and Monica and Nigel told her that I will not, I have nothing to say. I'll just lend the program. I don't know anything. In my mind, I was going to just be a shadow in the background and look at what has happened. And so I am asking you tonight, I'm putting this little link in the chat, and I'm asking you tonight to step up. I see my friend Lumumba stepping up. Okay, so we're gonna I'm putting this link in the chat, and the same way that I made that decision that I'm going to step up and I'm going to open my computer 4 nights a week. For 3 hours. Listen, I'm asking you to join me tonight. The general is not here, and let us show him. Let us show the general that we've learned well. We've been taking notes. I started out with this book. This is a show, my first night show that I started. And I started with this book, guys. This book. Oops, something is on it. I started with this book. And look, I'm on the back. I'm literally writing on the back page. I've taken so many notes in this book, folks. I have been to school. I've learned so much about the Barbados government and how it's run, from Caswell Franklin, Lynette Eastman, Maxine McLean, from Winston when he comes on, from Kemar Stewart. Oh my goodness, I've been a student. I don't know about you, but I've been a student at this. And I am just thankful. I am just thankful that I could be part of this. I'm really, really thankful. This is the first night show. The first night show where I literally thought something was wrong with the meter. 700 people. I just, come on, where did 700 people come from? Huh? So tonight, guys, here is a link. Please join the live, and I put the number there, and I wanted to join. I wanted to use the number too, right? And to join the live, join the live. You know, I see Miss McLean is on. I see a JB is on, but devices are not connected. So you do have to connect the devices. Okay, so you have to connect your devices. Let me go to Miss McLean, and then I'm going to bring in Lumumba. Lumumba will stay with us as long as he's able to tonight. Good evening, Miss McLean. I caught you off guard. Good night, Miss McLean. Your mic, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Hi. Yeah, I said I'd disappeared a second trying to find the charger for my cell phone, because it needs charging, and I sometimes need to refer to stuff. But
Yes.
if I want to research something.
So you've charged it, because I wanted to have all of your tools.
Yeah, I'll be charging it behind me. That's okay. I got the cord, so
yes,
I'll be fine.
Yes, wonderful. I'm sure you heard me giving that story of how this whole thing started. I think Lumumba probably watching something at the same time. Lumumba,
he may have to mute his mic for a minute.
Yes.
Yes, I did, and I really, well, I have heard, because I ran up the stairs and then I came down. I heard you were talking about the first show, but I really want to say thank you, because I don't know if listeners, I was going to say Barbadians, but your audience is not only Barbadians or in Barbados, really understand the effort that you put into this and the ease with which you responded, because it was literally a matter of calling you and saying, listen, I've just driven home listening to this thing about national insurance. And I mean, it took, as somebody who tends to follow the debates in Parliament and so on, not as religiously as I did in the past, sadly, because sometimes the quality of what I hear is not worth my time, to be frank. But when I heard that particular matter, I was on my way home from my dentist. I remember precisely. And I said, this is a serious matter. And it is coming at a time when Barbadians are not even thinking about the issue of anything serious. I mean, it was crop over. It was the 2 bank holidays coming, and I think you went through all of that, and it has evolved into this. And I want to say thank you very much to you, and to Dave, of course, because I am sure that it requires a lot of work on your part, which means sacrificing some of your family time and things that you have to do. But you talk about unsung heroes, and I will tell you that is how I see you. I let me share with your audience how I think we met in 2014.
But people, I didn't mention her name because I don't like to, my peoples, I don't, unless they tell me. I listen, I hear a lot of things and I don't say a lot of things. You trust me, opposition. But the person who called me was Miss McLean, and this is one of the reasons I love this lady. I'll tell you
You
why.
can call my name anytime.
Because Miss McLean loves Barbados, and I know sometimes I see people make comments in the comment section. This is one of those politicians. I tell you the truth, that what I believe, my experience with her, not because she's here. This is somebody who loves Barbados, and when she told me, Marcia, we're not going. There's no time for people to speak about this because of the holidays. It tugged on my heart, and I felt her sincerity, you know. And yeah, so I just had to say that. Go ahead, please.
But that's right. And for those who label me as a politician, I was honored to serve. But if they want to know something about who I am the little sister to Wendell McLean. And that little sister, he was the second of 11. I was the ninth of 11 children. And the kind of values that my parents instilled in us, people saw exemplified in him. And that is the legacy he left us. When on his dying bed, and I will say this because I tell people I came to politics only 10 years ago. I'm 67 years old now, so I was over 50 when I came to politics. I on his dying bed, he said to one of his four daughters, because when I asked, I did his eulogy, and he said, when people remember your father, they will remember a man of integrity. That is what my second brother left for me. Enough said. And that's how I live my life. So anybody, they can call me anything, say anything. It doesn't bother me. I believe in principle, and that's how my parents brought us up. And that is how we have operated. So, before I go any further, I want to wish my brother Caswell well. Caswell and I go back to the credit union days, and that's another area in which people know me. So I think, Marcia, at the end of the day, part of the problem we have is that a lot of people are not willing to do what you do. Okay. And that is to give of your time and yourself. You could be out there, looking to get involved in the things that would make you money or whatever. Think of the amount of time and the quality of this show, the issues. But one of the things I would say to you is that you are, I'm gonna label, I call you an agent of empowerment. And by that, remember that, by that I mean that you have identified the need to help people understand, and by having knowledge, equipping themselves to handle themselves in several ways. And the latest was yesterday when you organize, people have gone, you've said to people, okay, we've been talking a lot about this show. Let us now do something, go a step further. Let us sit down and, somebody's Sugarcane King is cruising. Well, Marcia, I will tell you this: to follow this show from a cruise ship is expensive. So Sugarcane King is paying money because cruise ships don't give you internet for free as a rule.
Wow.
So Sugarcane King, we appreciate.
Wow, from his cruise cabin on the sea. I saw it and I'm trying to figure it out. So listen, my man, listen. We are honored. He could have been up on one of the parties or something, and he's with us tonight.
Yes, and I, as somebody who had an interest in the cruise industry in Barbados for about 15 years, I understand the business. That's why I could tell you quickly that it must cost him to follow. It isn't typical that you get free Wi-Fi on a cruise ship. So, he probably bought a package to make sure that he could follow the show, Marcia. So but as I was saying, in terms, one of the things that people need to understand is that an individual can make a difference. Because oftentimes a lot of people say, well, I don't make sense me doing this or me doing that. But an individual can make a difference. And what you have started for me is what I consider to be a movement of self-empowerment. And it is about educating people's minds, about sensitizing people to the importance of issues. And hopefully when you start to talk about the session that you had yesterday, the beginning of an effort to strategize and to draw from persons their thoughts on a number of things, that it will also hopefully translate into what I call um, economic enfranchisement as well, because we
Mhm.
as a people are sleeping on resources, whether it's our intellects, whether it's our technical and skills and competencies, whether it is our financial resources. There's a lot that we can do as a people to improve our quality of life, to improve our financial status, to create wealth. And we've talked a lot about it, but I am seeing from all that you've been doing that that is one of the directions in which you're looking to move. And I really
Yes.
laud you for that.
Yes, thank you, Miss McLean, and that's a good segue to get into what we did this weekend. And I know that some of the persons who've led sessions are throughout this week are going to come on to share on what they were able to glean from their discussion, the way forward. They started by looking at some of the issues. So for those who are just joining, we on Saturday we started for the first time something called a non-partisan strategic meeting, and it was done via Zoom, where we call it's a non-partisan national strategy planning meeting, non-partisan national strategy planning meeting on Zoom. And it was only about 26 of us, and as I said, on a night we can get up to 460 something people on. And I was concerned, Miss McLean, that only 26 persons who came on. It was raining, in my mind, where would people be going? They're home, but I guess people are still busy. But I think, though, that what we want to do is to get away from just talking and discussing. We've been doing that since July 30th. And we've been going 4 nights a week from July 30th. You have August 30th, that's 1 month. September 30th, that's 2 months, right? August, September. Then we went to October, that's 3 months. 3 months we've been in class, we've been discussing, we've been learning. As I showed you, my book is written out. I started writing in my phone, in the notes in my phone. I need to buy a new book. The point is that it reaches a point now where I think, Ms. McLean, we need to be able to look at the information that we have and to begin to say, all right, so how do we roll up our sleeves and use the intellect, use all this free education that Barrow put in place for us? How do we use that? Because Barbadians are intelligent people, especially when you heard what came out of those meetings yet on Saturday, those breakout rooms. I think that is important that more persons join. And so throughout the week, what we're going to do is to have leaders of the different groups, breakout groups, to come on and to share on some of the things. We can't say everything publicly, but we are going to choose, just to talk about some of the things that we discussed, and what the plans are for the next one, which is Saturday coming. So Saturday coming at 10 o'clock, we're going to open up the Zoom again and invite people to come in who are willing to work and to roll up their sleeves and work for Barbados. Because what we're saying, as Ms. McLean said, this is about empowerment. So you have education, you have information, you have education, you've been inspired. What do you do with that now? This is what the national anthem, the loyal sons and daughters, this is what it's all about. So we're going to be speaking about various issues. But Miss McLean, you were in the group that was discussing about economics and looking at some of the
Economy.
challenges. Yes, the economy, I'm sorry. Can you give us a little just as a little overview on what happened in that session?
But I think basically what was suggested when I joined was that you needed, in terms of the economy, what were some of the pressing issues that impact on Barbadians, and how could they uh, come up with a set of solutions that can address that. And one of the first one that when I joined that we thought we would look at was the cost of living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how that translates into I suppose you could say, the quality of life, the challenges that families face, and what solutions might there be. And so basically, without getting into very, very specific solutions, what the idea was that when you look at the cost of living, there are two elements to the cost. Let's say when you go into a store or supermarket or whether there are things that are imported and there are things that are produced or can be produced locally. And the question was what kinds of initiatives can we look to develop that would address directly ways of reducing the cost of living. And in terms of well, as I said, you can focus on imports and you focus on local production of products and services.
Yeah.
And in doing that, and in terms of focusing on the local products and services, the idea was that you wanted to have basically what would be a win-win game in terms
Mm-hmm.
of improving the ability of especially your small business people, let's say people in the agricultural sector, agribusiness, sectors, for example, to improve their ability to generate revenue, while at the same time, through strategies for distribution and so on, that you can also reduce the cost to the household or the final consumer. And so there were some suggestions made in terms of how these things could go. And as you said, the specifics would not be, this is not the time to share more than that. But what I
Mm-hmm.
can say is that there's some very concrete recommendations which can impact how people control not only their consumption, but also impact on the production of goods and services in a way that is beneficial to persons and creating opportunities to be more than just consumers.
Yeah. And I remember when you started to share, even right there, because what we did was, as soon as people came in, they then went to various groups.
Mhm.
And we had the economy, we had the child protection bill, we had water, NIS and pension reform, and we also had we had freedom of expression,
Mhm.
as well, and agriculture. And then you guys met in your various groups, and then we came back together, to give a summary of what happened and what were some of the recommendations, etc., etc. And it was, I mean, we could have listened to you forever. We had to stop because it was just so much. So right now, oh my goodness, the people, the bikes are passing right
I have
now.
I have the same problem in my neighborhood sometimes. Don't worry.
um you know but I mean, the ideas that were coming out, and and when I hear, when people say, but when these are gone, who is going to lead the country? Listen, you should have been at that meeting. If you heard what was coming out of that meeting, people, you would realize how equipped Bajans are. This is a non-partisan national strategy planning meeting, and we're doing a review tonight, and it's going to be again on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. But listen, guys, listen, don't you ever ask that question again. We have capable people in Barbados. Capable. When you hear the ideas that were coming out, Miss McLean, where do you see this, a group like this going? Where do you see it? Can you do you as you were part of the one that was talking about the economy, and then when you came back and heard everybody else, where do you see it going?
What I see coming out of that, there's several strands to it, because if you look at the categories that you had, some of them speak, for example, when we talked about NIS reform in that group, and you're looking at helping people to understand what the issues are, how the issues impact on them, how they need to to ensure that they're knowledgeable of their rights and all of those things. That's one thing. On the other hand, you're looking at the issue of the economy, um, and the question is, how can we make a difference? So what I'm saying is a process of education, but also a process of education leading to business activity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. there, in the case of the economy, which can be beneficial, because at the end of the day, I mean, I referred to Caswell and myself as being in the credit union movement. I happened to join the credit union in 1983, 40 years ago. And from then, I've been very involved in what has happened, what is happening in the movement. I've paid attention, not only as an academic, but as a member and as a leader in the movement and all of that, to see how, in fact, a movement that became the beginnings of the movement as we know it now, let me put it that way,
Yes.
would have been 40 years ago when you saw, and I mean, some young men and women got together back then, and just about a couple of them, and saw that there was a potential in this. And I can, and if you ask any of it, those guys who would have been, or the people who would have been involved in the movement, and I say guys because they were, majority of them were guys. If you ask them if they imagine 40 years ago that the movement would be where it is today, they will probably tell you no. The point I'm making, it takes a few people to really get things going sometimes. And I mean, you were lamenting the fact that you had only 26 persons or so on. But the truth is, strategizing in a small group initially may also be more efficient and effective. So now persons can join next week and hear what is happening, and use it, use the work that has started to bring their skills and start to pool their knowledge and all of these things. For example, you were discussing water. Now, clearly, based on the persons there, they're people with technical knowledge, etc. I was able to suggest to the group somebody that I would approach who has years of experience in the whole question of water resources and so on. And I think that, for example, these things are not disconnected. Maybe it's how my brain works, but they're not disconnected. We talked about the economy. One of the important points that I made yesterday was that we've been hearing talk about food security. And if I can refer to something recently, I think the Prime Minister was in Egypt or somewhere, and she was talking about very recently, a day or two ago, about food security. And my response to the clip that I heard was, what is her plan or her government's plan for national food security? Because we've been hearing about regional, and now she's talking global. But my concern is right here on this rock called Barbados. There is significant scope for us to get our young people involved, and not only persons planting, but a young farmer needs somebody who can do his accounting or her accounting, somebody who can advise on things related to agronomy and all the things that I don't know about. Because we have thousands of young people coming out of university year after year. What are they doing? And as much as we talk about building a storage facility or something to import, there are a lot of questions I can ask. What happens if we have a major hurricane and a port, let's say it's coming out of Trinidad or Guyana or whatever, transiting, and your port is damaged? We have to think about here. So if we're talking about agriculture, one of the things, because once we were talking water, I consulted with a good friend of mine who knows a lot about this issue. And it would be useful if they draw on his knowledge. But I asked, and he said one of the biggest issues for us with water in Barbados is in the area of agriculture. Now, I don't know about you, but I have sat and seen and heard a lot of rain falling over the last few weeks, 2 weeks for sure. And it looks like the forecast, for example, when I checked the forecast for this week, there's a lot more rain. Yes. What are we doing to get our young people to do some research into water capture and storage, ways that they can aerate the water so that it doesn't get what was the word I want? The quality of the water is kind of preserved and so on.
Yes.
So my point is that when this is where I see us going, Marcia, that there are people who come together. you start to flesh out ideas, and then people say, okay, I know John Brown, Mary Smith, Jane Doe,
That's
John
the
Doe
point. That's
can
the
come
point.
in
And
and
let
bring
me
their expertise at home
coming
and
together,
abroad.
yeah. And that is what when you were saying when we brought everybody together, Andrea, when we brought everybody together, after the breakout rooms, and when you were able to make that suggestion, I'm saying this is really what it's all about, because Andrea is saying the information is very important, but we also need to know what to do moving forward in this present economic climate. But Andrea, it's when we come together, because Miss McLean, there you're going to hear from Trevor. Trevor, oh Lord, he's
Seeley,
going to kill me.
Seeley,
Trevor
Seeley,
Seeley,
Seeley.
oh Lord, Trevor, please. Trevor Seeley, Mr. Trevor Seeley is going to come on, and he was leading the water group, and Miss McLean was able to give them the name of someone right there. And is what I'm saying is when we come together, then things start to happen, because things are happening. Believe me, things are happening, and the knowledge is in Barbados. There is enough knowledge in Barbados for us to recover. I totally believe that, Miss McLean. I believe that, because I know of the intelligence of Bajans. I know it, and I believe in Barbadians.
Let me answer Andrea Critchlow in a simple. I like to use myself as an example. The present economic climate, in relation to the same issue that we raised about the high prices in our supermarkets, the high cost of living, full stop. Now, there are a couple of things. Ever so often, we hear local farmers complaining about their inability to get produce sold. A few weeks ago, about 2 months ago or so, a month or two ago, it was people were talking about watermelons, for example. Ever so often, you hear about glut, so and whatever the case may be. There are two things there. One, I have made a conscious decision years ago, a long time ago, that I will buy local produce first. Okay,
Mhm.
so I go into the supermarket, and because I'll be honest, I don't bother to go into the markets now because I buy too much when I do that. Because when I used to go in the markets, I was shopping for my mother, myself, my sister, and everybody. And when I go and I see the lovely produce, I get carried away. The supermarket that I go to happens to have fresh produce in the middle of the week, and I go there, and the produce, and if I see something, I ask the question, where is this from? And if it is something I
Mm.
know that I can get a local item, I will go on the street and find it. The point I'm making is, for years, whether it is food, whether it is clothing, whether it is entertainment, I decide how I spend my money. You can bring whatever and put it before me. That does not mean I have to buy it. That's the point I'm making.
Right.
So we need to demonstrate by our actions, and as individuals, if we do this. So for example, when we talked about high cost of living, there are several ways in which we can impact our personal expenditures and so on by how we make decisions.
Hmm.
We're coming up to Christmas, as you know, and this is going to be an interesting time because people sometimes
Correct.
get carried away. Commercial entities have to do business, yes, but we also have to be smart about how we spend our money. And the other important thing I would say to Miss Critchell, I think it was, is that we also have to make a decision on how we save and invest. And
Mm.
I said it on this program before. Anybody in the credit union movement who knows me, anybody I've been using it in relation to stuff I'm doing. I'm not using a word I used to tell my students don't use in relation to things that I used to tell them don't use the word stuff in my class. In relation to things that I'm doing with the University of West Indies alumni, chapter here in Barbados, is that there's power in pooling.
Yes.
And a critical part of what I will say this, Marcy, a critical part of what was discussed yesterday in terms of one of the suggestions I made is that we can find a way to minimize our risk, because business is risky. But if you and I
Hmm.
decided we want to go into business and it was going to take us $10,000, and we split it in two, that's 5 and 5. But if we found 8 other like-minded persons, then each of us
Yes.
would put in 1,000 instead of 5. So so then you get the project going, but then you realize that there's less financial burden on you. Your level of risk is reduced, but the project still comes off the ground. Now think in terms of that. If, like you say, you have on average maybe 400 persons on a show, and if they,
Yeah.
so my point is that there's some very simple things that can be done. You're not trying to 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 overturn everything, but you're saying let us take some steps,
Small.
small
Yes.
steps initially. But as I said, when I look at the credit union movement, the guys who got together, the 12 people who signed to start my credit union, and of course, as Sonia says, the meeting term will never die. I have shown people how they can use meeting terms and the credit union in combination to do
Uh-huh.
something significant for themselves. But that's another time for another place, because when you
Yes, I'm interested
national,
because those are practical things. I know people were trying in a lot in COVID with the blessing circles and so on, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the
I don't
meeting
them blessing
turn,
circles. I know
which
about them.
which
I know
no,
about
we're
them.
not talking about those. I have nothing to do with that. I told people don't even call me about that. But we're talking about the meeting turn, the susu, the partner, all of those things that come from Africa. You hear? That is what
And
we're talking about. And I love how what you said, putting it together with the credit union. I love that. I love
let me
that.
give you an example, Marcia, because I talked about Christmas, and at this point in time, we see a lot of glossy magazines and so on, and they tell you, pay $5 or $25 a week or whatever. Two things you have to be very careful with, and this is where the meeting turn and so on is useful: credit cards and hire purchase.
Mhm.
Both of them, the interest rates that you pay, without getting too technical and spending too much time, the interest rates that you pay on a credit card and hire purchase are almost the same thing. When you work out the interest on a credit card, is usually about between 20 and 23%. What that means is that if you use your credit card, um, let's say $100, and in a year's time, it would attract $23 in interest if it's 23%. Now,
Yeah.
think about what happens if you had that $100 in the bank and they give you less than 1%. 1% of $100 is $1. You don't get 1% interest now. You get less than that.
Mm.
So imagine that
Mm.
you are saving and you get less than $1 on that $100, but you go and use it and charge something and you pay back at minimum rates and whatever. The interest in a year could be about $23 on that $100. But if
Mhm.
you and you wanted to buy something in higher purchase, as I said, the rates are almost the same thing. If you wanted to buy a piece of furniture, and I know Barbados like to change things at Christmas, and that's fine, because
Yes.
but you plan for it. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you get in a meeting turn in August, September, on October, and you are, let's say the meeting turn is a 500, they're telling you at $100 a month or whatever, so you get a meeting turn of $1,000. um Go and put it in the credit union, and if you wanted to buy an item that costs $3,000, you can put in your $1,000 as savings and have it there, but borrow. And then the rates that you're paying, you're paying on a declining balance, or you borrow some money and you're going to get a meeting turn in a lump sum, and you go and pay off a loan
Mhm.
that you had. So there are a lot of simple ways that people can do things to reduce the expensive nature of things like hire purchase and using credit cards, because a lot of people say, well, I use the card, I only paying the minimum. But if they're only paying the minimum,
Mhm.
they'll never go to debt. But so
Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
things that people need to think about. So when you're
But
doing
Miss McLean, I was thinking that because I don't want to miss his thought, because I'm listening to you and I'm loving this, and I'm saying to myself, I want to hear from my loyal opposition out there, because we're all about being practical in here. And when you see this economy and what's going on, you gotta wheel and come again. You have to, in Jamaica we say a wheel and come again. You're gonna have to right back and you say, all right, so this is what's happening. All right, how are we going to deal with this now? Because our ancestors, they dealt with so many things, Miss McLean. They
Yeah.
a lot of what we saw were built out of the susus and the meeting turns and the partners and all of that.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that come
I come from
January,
that
I'm thinking
tradition.
I'm thinking come January. I'm wondering, Miss McLean, if we can set, because January is a good time to start and do some, like some financial. We will find a name for it and have a show where
Okay.
we bring up our graphs and you see, people can see how much money they could save and some kind of financial planning and those kinds of things. We will.
Personal financial planning and
Yes.
education. No, you're correct. I used to, I mean, you see, you got me carried away because I used to do that kind of thing for church groups and parent teachers association. I remember going, being asked by the chaplain of the Barbados Defense Force to go and do some presentations to the not the officers, but the junior ranks. I think that's the title they may give them, of the BDF, in showing them how to manage their money and so on.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be surprised. I mean, I have when we get to do that, I can share stories of persons who have come back to me to say thank you for getting them to do some of these things. Because a person might figure that saving $25 a week or something is not a big thing, but think about it as you go along, over a couple of years, coming from a place where you were saving nothing
Mm-hmm.
and saying I cannot save. And then I ask a person to look at the amount of food that they probably buy out on the street, as opposed to probably planning their meals and taking things to lunch. And you know that's, I mean, you're taking me back into a whole
Yeah,
set of
but
things that
no,
I
man, we're
I
gonna do this. I think that we should plan for this January, and even if
that's right.
even if we do segments, because we have to watch what's happening in the country too,
Of
because
course.
sometimes we can't plan too. I realize with these kind of shows, you can't really plan too much in advance. But even if we have a segment that is to financial planning, and we start at the beginning of the year, probably towards the end of the year into the beginning of the year, I believe that it will be beneficial to people because, as I said, we have to wheel and come again. We have got to help one another. We're gonna have to work together. We're gonna have to trust one another. That's the other thing. All of these things are going to be very, very important. But at 8 o'clock, Miss McLean, we do have Miss Trevor Seeley is going to come on and talk about what the water group, what they did. But we're also asking people to call in. This is a number here, as you know, Caswell. Another, I tell you, that man is something else. He spent his money and invested in this phone here for you to be able to call in because he wants you part of the discussion. And so, this is your phone. Is your phone 1-246-840-840-8888 if you want to participate. All right, you call 850-8888. You're calling from overseas, you add the 246 before it, and we should be able to get everybody hearing you tonight. You can also use the StreamYard link to come in on the show and to share your thoughts. Share what is on your mind. I'm seeing Lumumba there. Oops, and he's just gone already.
I mean, he was
Oh,
waiting.
he's here. He's
Okay.
here. I'm seeing Lumumba, and he's joining us. Let him. Lumumba, good night.
Good
And when
night. Good night to everyone. Good night, Miss McLean. Good night, Marcia.
Good. Hello to
Good
you.
hello to you.
The two soldiers in the battlefield.
Listen,
Uh,
Lumumba.
yeah.
Oh wow, I'm
Oh
getting
wow,
the
I'm
same
getting
thing
the same
again.
thing again.
What's that?
Are you hearing it
Are
now,
you
Miss
hearing it,
McLean?
Miss McLean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unmuted.
I noted it.
There's something
There's
that's
something
keeping us
that's
up.
keeping us up.
So I don't know if he
So I
has
don't know
two
if he
things
has to be
open.
open.
If I have,
Yeah,
Yeah, there's.
let me try,
Let
I'm
me.
gonna try
I'm gonna try
something.
something and
Because we're
because
hearing,
we're
we're hearing it is
hearing
repeating.
is repeating.
You hearing 3 people?
It's just a repeating
It's
of
just a repeating
ourselves.
of ourselves.
Oh,
Right. So what I'm
Right. So what
okay. What I'm going to do, Lumumba, I'm going to turn off my microphone and just let you speak. And then, so just say what is on your mind, anything you want to say to the people. And then right as you're finished, then Trevor Seeley is going to come on, because whenever I turn on my microphone, there is an issue. So I have to see what's happening with that. Okay. So, you can hear me, right? You can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we want to welcome Lumumba, and Lumumba is going to take a couple minutes before Mr. Seeley comes on and to share his thoughts with us. And I'm hoping that he can go back and forth. He can always stay in the, speak for the first 5 minutes, and then we'll keep you in the here with us for the night if you will hang out with us, okay? And do the best. Hopefully, technically, we'll be all right. Okay.
Can you hear me? My mic is muted.
No, we're hearing
No,
you.
we're
Go
hearing
ahead.
you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. As I said, good night to everyone. Out here eating some sweet bread and drinking some tea, listening to the two giants, so I would just say, as y'all was talking, I was just thinking about, when Marcia said that, there's people that say, well, if there's no government, what we going to do? Actually, I did a video this week on my live, and they spoke about that, and they said the same thing Marcia said, that we have so much great minds in this country. I don't know why we worrying about if we get rid of the government, of what we're going to do. We have great minds. I mean, look at what's being created right here in front of us, and that's from great minds. So, I do feel that we have the people in this country. And even if we don't have if we don't have all, we have other Caribbean islands that we have great minds. I mean, just like America do their brain draining, and England, and snatch up the best minds from the Caribbean and to build their own. Well, we could snatch from our own. We could get from our own. There's one Caribbean, so we should never have to worry about what's going to happen. I also thought about the fact that, when a house is burning, if we are in a house and it's burning, what's our first thought? To get out the house first, not to stay in the house and worrying about when we get out the house, what is going to happen. You got to get out first. Then after we get out, we could sit and we could talk about what we're going to do next. So, people have to. It's a fear. To me, it's like a fear that people, what we going to do next. And I think Marcia, yourself, McLean, Senator McLean, I also see Caswell and all the other Kimar, all the, they're actually showing us, y'all showing us what we can do. All we have to do is just pay attention and just listen, pay attention, listen, and I think we could learn from there. And I do appreciate, I could tell you the fact that y'all have taught me so much. I mean, I don't know very much about Barbados and in that way, but by me being around Marcy and being around people like yourself is rooting me even further into and getting me to appreciate, where I come from, where I was born. I could see the beauty in it. I could see it. And I just thank all y'all, man, for the work that y'all doing, that y'all putting in, and continue to do the work. Marcy, I always tell you, and I would tell you again, don't worry about numbers, because any revolution that you could think of on this planet Earth started with just a few people. You understand what I mean? So so don't worry about, don't think about the numbers, just think about the people that's there. That's what I mean, if it's, I give you an example, Marcus Garvey. I always tell people this. Marcus Garvey, when he first started out, he said that he called a meeting at a church somewhere in Harlem. And when he came out on stage, there was only like 4 people there, or 5 people. But he said he spoke to those people like he was speaking to 10,000 people. He didn't become discouraged. He didn't become discouraged that, I only got 4 people here. Let me turn back. He said he spoke to those 4 like he was speaking to 10. And by him doing that, look, we could all now talk about Marcus Garvey and the work that he's done. He didn't give up. And that's what I have to say to you, Marcia, that don't I know you're gonna feel discouraged sometimes, but that's all part. We all human, but know that there's behind every dark cloud is a silver lining. And we gonna always keep our focus on the silver lining, and we gonna walk through the dark clouds. Yeah, and that's what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lumumba. Unfortunately, I have to turn off your microphone when I'm speaking, so we don't have the feedback. But we can. But that was so beautifully said. And as Miss Aquarius is saying, I believe this group can bring about change. I have a good feeling. It's inspirational. Yes, I'm feeling it too. I'm really feeling it too. And I love how Lumumba has a show, and I want to talk about that show. And I said to him, I said, Lumumba, this is so wonderful. You hold the day and I hold the night. And so he comes on at 11 o'clock. And often I go on and I'm listening to him. I remember once I went down the shop, because sometimes if I'm in town, when I go by the police, I try to pass by the shop, and and he makes me a good coffee. I would sit down and reason in his shop. And when I went there, your show was on, Burning Spear, the Spear, Burning Spear, man. And and that show is at 11 o'clock, guys, on Lumumba's page. Okay, the Facebook page, 11 o'clock. You tune in, so you miss 7 o'clock at night, you can get Lumumba 11 o'clock in the day, okay, on his show. So you haven't seen him come on here, but he's burning, he's burning that torch at the Burning Spear. And that is at 11 o'clock in the day. Listen, we're working together, yeah. Very well. Thank you so much, Lumumba. Just hang out in the hang out, and then you signal to me when you want to come back in to say something, because we have to turn off the mics and so on. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. God bless you. God bless you. I have Mr. Seeley right there, and I told you he was coming up. And I wanna just do this real quick before he comes. We have website, and the website, Miss McLean, actually started through these night shows. Somebody came up and said, listen, I want to create a website for you. And so they've created this website, and it's going really well. We're getting a lot of traffic there. And one of the things that we have up tonight, guys, is we have another article in our newsletter. Okay. And this one was written by somebody very, 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 very close to me, my dear husband. And it's called Hypocritical Pan-Africanists. And so this was put up today, November 13th. And I would suggest that you go and read and get a read of it. Go to the marciaweekshow.com. And every week we're gonna have more newsletters. As you please, you can submit articles to the newsletter, and if you want, you can subscribe to it, and we'll be able to email you newsletters as well, so you know what is happening. And you can also just to be able to hear other views. It's another way that we can speak out. And so some people might not want to come on the show, but you might want to write something. And so this is a way. So you can go and check that newsletter out at the marciaweekshow.com. This is an article written by Dave Weeks. Dave is a lot of times the newspaper carries his articles, whether it's The Nation or Barbados Today. He's a frequent writer in those papers as well. So you can check it out here on the marciaweekshow.com. So now over to Mr. Seeley. Mr. Seeley, where are you? Where are you? You're right here. Listen, I'm full. We're full tonight. Mr.
Yeah.
Seeley, welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to have you tonight, sir.
Yes, you can hear me good. All right.
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Wonderful.
No feedback. Nothing. Yes. It's great to have you here on tonight, sir. Thank you for the work that you have been doing quietly behind the scenes. I won't say all that you've been doing, but behind the scenes, working very hard for the opposition. Which, when we say the opposition, we're talking the people of Barbados, right?
Yes, indeed.
This is not a political party, but Trevor has been doing a lot of work behind the scenes and giving a lot of encouragement and making things happen. And when we wanted someone to head up water, you said, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I think we found the right person. So you on Saturday, you came on and you had a group. How many persons were in your group, Mr. Seeley?
About 5, I believe. Not too many, just about 5.
You had 5.
Yeah.
Just about five in your group. And
Yeah.
And how was the experience for you?
Well, I'm looking forward to another one, actually. I'm looking forward to another one. I haven't been involved in group meetings and making decisions and stuff for such a long while, and since I left the company that I worked at, and it was a very good experience. And it's always good when you can come up with solutions. I mean, workable and doable solutions. It's always rewarding to do that.
Yes, and so you're looking forward to the next one on Saturday, and
Yes.
5 persons, man. I think we should have a couple more discussing about this water and really putting our minds and our intellects to work and so on. Don't you think? How many persons you would want in that group with you?
Well, I don't look at numbers. I look at the quality of people.
Okay.
Numbers, you look at the Bible. I'm a Bible man. When you look at the Bible, and I will refer to that from time to time, but when you look at the Bible, God doesn't deal with numbers or whole groups of people. He tends to always deal with the few. I think it's Gideon with the 300 and Yeshua. This is Jesus with the 12, and they move mountains. And how they do it, with God, we can do anything. So I don't look at numbers. Once people believe in they can do it and believe in themselves, and they have the passion to go forward and make a difference, that's the type of person that that we should be looking for.
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, thank you for that reminder.
But one little correction. The date on the newsletter is November 13th. The newsletter is scheduled to go the next week, which begins tomorrow, because today's the 12th. So I just want to make that one little correction. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So he kind of gave away what he does. So
the thing is, subscribers will get.
Can I say anything about what you do, or just leave it at the way it is going?
Well, it's no problem. Being people that know me know pretty much what I do. A bit of this and a bit of that. I run from the saying a master of how's it go again?
You're a jack of all trades and
jack of all
master
trades, master of none. That is foolishness in my book. You can master. We have the ability to master most things if we put our minds to it. Throw your heart in it. Believe believe in the word again. We can do all things in Christ who strengthens us, and you'll be like a rocket ship.
Yes, wonderful. Right. So tell us a bit about the some of the what you guys came up with, what summarize your discussion for us. And of course, I know you're a man, you know what to say and what not to say at this time. So
yes,
go
of
ahead
course.
and let us know.
Yeah. Well, we came together and we introduced each other, and one of the things that came out, none of us are experts at water
Mhm.
management or water. We hear about this and we hear about that, but we're not directly experts. But to my mind, again, that's not a failing. Once you can have access to the information and you can read, you can understand. All right. It doesn't take a
Mhm.
university degree to understand English, and there are things that are broken down in layman's terms. You look for those things and study and understand and get and go from there. So what we touched on was, first we identified what we have in terms of it being a problem. When we talk in drinking water or sewage treatment, or treated
Mhm.
sewage into drinking water, and we called it a problem because when you just think about it alone, and Caswell made mention to this, it comes over distasteful. Yeah, yes, you have the processes, you have the pumping, and you have the filters and so on, but there's so much involved in that process. If something goes wrong, and it's not a matter of if or a matter of when, not if it will go wrong, but it can when it can go wrong. And anyhow, from that perspective, as it being a problem, we looked at it, and my approach to problems is using logic. Now, our minds are made up with logic and ability to and emotions. So we bring in logic to
Mhm.
this situation, and we ask the questions, and we how do we approach this problem? Yes, with logic. Just going through here. First, we need to educate ourselves, and in the group, things came up that we can start our educational process in. Because again, if you're going to solve a problem, you need to approach it with logic, but you can't have logic without
Mhm.
education and information.
Correct.
And mention was made to Tree Houses Spring Act, as well as other legislations that we can get hold of and read and study up. And also, I learned this for the first time yesterday. I guess it was not marketed or publicized too much. But Barbados Water Authority has something called Water Wednesdays, and they go through details as to what they're doing, how they're doing on the road stuff. And you get to meet a couple. I only looked at it yesterday a little bit too as well. You get to meet a couple of their staff that wish they come on camera and speak. So
Mhm.
that's a wonderful way to educate ourselves through video. Also, another way to educate ourselves is to connect with experts. I think Senator McLean mentioned
Mhm.
that she knows someone who's retired, people like that. And not only experts, but we need to connect with experts that have courage to speak up, and not only speak up,
Mhm.
put things in writing and put the name to it. I find the last
Mhm.
2 to 3 years, experts have been missing in vital areas, and I believe we all know by now what those vital areas are, and
Yes.
and I guess for good reason too. But I think we are in a time that we cannot duck this time. This is a time I believe we are living out the book of Revelation. This is the time to stand up and be counted. So we need to connect with experts who will speak up and not afraid to go against the government's narrative. And so those are three key items there: educating ourselves. Now we all hear about the elephant in the room. If you're gonna solve a problem or begin to solve a problem, you need to don't ignore the elephants in the room.
Mhm.
And because the only wasting time, the elephant in the room will come back to bite you or sit on you or whatever. And that elephant in the room is corruption. And by the way,
Mhm.
it's not only local corruption. Corruption is all over this world. When you got a lot of money in play, you find corruption will come through the door. So I'm going to just read back something I wrote here on corruption, and it cannot be ignored.
Mhm.
And I'll be reading. In Barbados, we do not have a maintenance mindset. Currently, Our buildings, roads, and infrastructure are allowed to deteriorate due to a lack of regular upkeep. Instead of proactively maintaining and preserving our assets at a minimum cost, we tend to opt for the more expensive route of demolishing and rebuilding. Unfortunately, this is a luxury our country can no longer afford. The fact is, there is no money in the maintenance approach. We believe this is the main reason why our politicians take the rebuilding better track. This practice is not just local to our government, but a world issue with governments that embark on under-the-table deals and kickbacks on large projects to enrich themselves. We need to take approaches that serve the people and not the politicians' pockets. They must be reminded they are there to serve the people and not themselves. With corruption out of the way, and there is indeed if there is indeed a water supply issue and not a leak issue, we must first address the rusty pipes. There can be no moving forward until we repair all the leaks. Spending tons of money that ends up in the ground is never wise. Will you not fix a tire that has a slow leak or change the water to a leaking tap? You know the old saying, waste not, want not. Let us not leave our leaks for future generations. And something I like to say here is,
Yeah.
I love my
I
country,
love the
Barbados.
analogy. I love the analogy. You need to develop that into an article, into something. But go ahead. Yeah.
A newsletter.
Yeah. In the newsletter.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Mm. Yeah. So you see, why corruption flourishes, I believe, is because we have forgotten the God that put us here. We forget that we will be judged on someday. So we put that aside and we do what we can to fill our pockets or to trick somebody or to stab somebody back. But I just want to remind everybody that hear my voice that you will be judged. You may not believe in God, that's your business. But people that believe in God, you will be judged. And you need to get the corruption out of your life and repent and and go forward the best way you can. And that would be my little short message with people who think or live on corruption. You will be judged. You will face it. We will all face our maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from there we looked at. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So what was interesting is, the old saying goes, two heads are better than one. We had four heads plus mine. And I learned a lot yesterday in that little short meeting. And I'm going to make some proposals here. I'm going to show the proposed solutions that came out of the meeting. And some of them I have to research myself. As I said, they're new to me. For home systems, someone brought to my attention, the group's attention, there's something called Bermuda roofing system. Apparently, Bermuda doesn't have any natural water, and it's a water scarce country. And they have roofing that maximizes the collection of water from the roof whenever the rain falls, and that goes into, I think, tanks or cisterns, and that's how they do it. And they were able to live on that. Yes, I think that is something that we can even consider or explore. And again, if someone is already doing it and it's working for them, and I understand reading the article, they've been doing this for the past 400 years. Why can't we, as a little Barbados, embark on something like that as well? So we have links. I guess if I do this as a newsletter, I'll put in links in so people can go and do their own research. And let me put a pin here. We need to do our own research. Don't trust the sources. Do your own research and verify things for yourself. This is what we need to do. As we don't be get off your lazy man seat and start doing your own research. Yeah, but these links to be provided that you can
Yeah.
see what they're doing.
So hold a minute. So this what we're
Mm.
seeing on the screen here is the Bermuda roofing. This is what
Oh,
it looks like. Yeah.
oh yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. It
No,
says the
I
design of
don't.
the roof has multiple benefits. Made of limestone, it is heavy and not easily shifted by hurricanes. And in the past, it was covered in a lime mortar, which had antibacterial properties. Now the mortar has been replaced by paint. It's still white because this reflection reflects ultraviolet light from the sun, which also helps to purify the water. And the system has a less visible benefit too. Self-sufficiency encourages islanders to conserve water. Yeah, so wow. So this is a roof. This is a Bermuda roofing system, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow.
I think this beats Jobby Water any day.
Oh wow. This is interesting. This is interesting. Anybody else out there knew about this? This is really good. I love this. I love this here. I see Miss McLean came back in. Miss McLean, you knew about
Yeah,
this
but
before?
I've heard about Bermuda for years that they and I think the houses they're required to paint the roofs, as you can see, they're white. Um, but I can speak to somebody who lives in Bermuda to find out exactly what they're required to do on a ongoing basis, But the whole
Wow.
question of capturing water, and this was the point I was making about how can we come up with systems to do
So,
this.
right. Well, it's good to hear Miss McLean that the group is looking into this, and if as you said, we can go a little further by trying to connect with people in Bermuda. But let's hear from him some more. Trevor, let's give us some more, please.
Yeah, and there's another pinpoint here I'd like to make here. We have become a nation of complainers, or this or that. And I tell people, no, if you got a complaint, bring a solution. If you don't have a solution, keep your mouth shut. Because complaining
Mhm.
doesn't change anything. Solutions do. So and I like that. What happened yesterday, we were actually looking at solutions, and I like the direction that the Marcia Week show is going in. So going back to it, for that reason, yeah, I like that direction. So then we moved on to something called, we have water tanks. Houses in recent years have been built with water tanks under the underground and standing tanks. And we looked at maybe what we can do is use those a little more, put in your own filter system, and use your own water a little more as an additional option. Then we moved on to looking at the commercial systems. Now, this would more apply to Barbados on the grander scale. And top on the list is something called solar desalination plant. Apparently, there are companies out there, and again, the link is there. And I believe, Mars, you can see this document you can see the document on your website, on your
There's a
browser.
document.
Yeah, which is the document. Let me send a link to you now. If I send it to you on the link on WhatsApp, you'll be able to pull the document
Yeah.
up. All right, let me just do that now.
Yeah, if it goes to me on my email would be faster, Trevor.
Email will be
If
faster.
you
All
can
right.
send it to
Okay.
my email would be faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
All right.
in
We
the
can
in the
always get.
meantime, while he's doing that, I put the yeah, I put the show. If you know what, Dave might be able to help me. Send it to me WhatsApp, and let me see if Dave might be able, or send it directly to Dave Trevor. Let's see. Um, yeah. So folks, let's
Yes.
this is a link to what I'm showing. If you want to go to read more about this, I think that people are interested in this. This is very fascinating for me. I want to learn more about this. Somebody's saying if we could get Miss McLean, if we could get somebody from Bermuda to come on the show to talk about this, would be great. Do you see how what came out of that meeting, Trevor? This is awesome. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you sent it to Dave, continue. Just keep going.
I
Keep speaking.
sent it already. So at least I reply to the email and put the link in there. But the thing is now is that
Okay.
it wouldn't be cost effective to change all our rules right now, but it is something that we can look at because we're now aware of it. I find there's a lot of information out there that would help us, but people don't research and look to find for whatever reason. So yeah, so the commercial aspect, as I mentioned, the solar desalination plant. Apparently, this is very efficient when you include the sun in the desalination process. So that's one other one that people can research. The link is there when the newsletter goes up. When it goes up in the newsletter, you can click on the link and understand it for yourself. Now we already have a desalination plant. I hear stories. I've not spoken to anyone directly, but I understand it is not actually functioning to full capacity. Why is that? I don't know, and that's something that we will need to press to find out. But the desalination plant that is on island already, maybe that capacity can be increased to increase the water flow to the country. The third one is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Moses. I call him Mr. Moses. I didn't get his first name, but he has developed an air-to-water mobile machines. These are machines that produce water out of the air. And I also provided a link that people can go and hear his full interview. And he was interviewed, and it's very interesting things came out. He had this brilliant idea, and people tried to steal it from him.
Wow.
People
And
tried
he
to
was in the
jeopardize.
group. He was in the group
No,
as
no, no.
well.
He's American. He's an American.
Okay.
He came out, I believe he came out of the Marines, and he was offshore in different countries, and where they were stationed, there had to be bringing in bottled water and all that. So he has an engineering background, so he developed a machine that is able to take water out of the air. And I think Puerto Rico is using his system at some point, and one or two other Caribbean islands have engaged him. Again, this is another direction that we can look at. The third one, and last for now, because I think there are more, and we'll look to see if we can find them. There's something called desert fog nets. These are nets that are erected in the desert, and you're able to get water from it. And again, all these things are commercial aspects, and it'll be interesting to see if we in consultation if we can get these things here working for ourselves. And this is the last part for now. There are other parts we need to add in, and I'll just make mention of. I'll just talk about the real risk in having sewage treatment plant in Barbados. This is a real risk, and this is the question I asked first. Can we develop and maintain sewage to drinkable water plant? A sewage to drinkable water plant? Can we maintain it? A tertiary treatment plant? And as an engineer, speaking from an engineering perspective, I would say yes. But you have to ask yourself again, we're thinking through these things logically. The answer is yes, we can. But given our past performance and the way we do business as a country, the answer is categorically no. It would not be advisable. It would not be advisable. If you look at how we have performed, I would not want us as a country to take on the management of a sewage to drinking water, treated sewage to drinking water. I would not want that based on our past performance. It would not be a question of if, but rather when will it all fail and come crashing down. We need to face the reality and stay where we are comfortable. It is called being real, Marcia. We need to be real with ourselves. If we don't have the ability or the capacity to do something, we should not put ourselves out there. And why, where else? If we destroy the aquifer, where else are we gonna go? We can't go straight to the sea because we don't have nothing to drink the seawater. Can't drink the seawater. Where will we go? It's too critical to put such a big risk on doing what is proposed, or I understand it's already happening. But the other one now that I would just draw attention to, and which is not on the report, is zoning, the zoning of our lands. I come up hearing about you can't build. I think you cannot build or have a septic tank in the Zone 1 area.
Mhm.
And now I'm hearing that these areas have been re-designated or resized, where now you can build on Zone 1. And it makes no sense to me. And let me just say this: we had forefathers that cared. They would have taken the time to know where the water supply is, where the water tables are, and put down stipulation and law. Don't build it here. Don't put any drill any septic sewage tanks. They would have done that. They were not focused on themselves. They were focused on who was to come. The generations will come. So, but now we're hearing that these things have been resized and changed up. Now we can build on it. It makes no sense. It doesn't. Has the water levels changed? Has the zone levels changed? It makes no sense. Have they done tests to see if it needs to be changed? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I don't want to use words and get kicked off the show, but it just is not. It's not. It just not. It just doesn't make sense. And
And
if, if,
look at
if
all.
that's the case, they need to pull back
Yeah,
and think and
yeah,
go
but
back to
you
home
know,
and think
Trevor,
again. Hmm?
I'm listening to this, and I see Kimar there on as well, and
Oh.
Kimar, this is so great that Kimar, he's soon to be 28. His birthday is going to come up in
Hmm.
December with a big bang, a big event there that he's putting on. I hope we can go and support him at Kimar's birthday party. But Kimar is 27 years old, and he's the one that started this national conversation on water. And Kimar, he wasn't there on Saturday because Saturdays he's very busy on Saturdays. I knew he wasn't going to be able to make it, but to see now that there is a group that's coming out of the show that is now studying this water business. I mean, this must warm your heart, Kimar. I know when he's ready to speak, he will say something on that. To hear that they had a full discussion and they're gonna meet again on Saturday. And now we're hearing about this man Moses, and we're hearing about the Bermuda roof roofing system. I'm like, what? All of this was out there all along.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me apologize. When I came on, I didn't say hello to anyone really. I went straight into it. But good night to everyone, and really a good and wonderful night to all my brothers and sister Bajans. It's our country. Let's pull together and do our best to raise everything up. And I just want to just read this thing on Marcia's website. Let your voice be heard. Only by speaking out can we create lasting change, and change begins with coming out. I love that. Deshaun Stokes. I
Mhm.
love that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking here, is this Martin Greenwich? Martin Greenwich is saying, probably this is something that we should look into, looking about whether earthquakes compromise our new water proposals. I know we can't answer that on here at the moment, but it's just something to look into. But I think, yeah, what else do you have? What else did you guys do, Trevor, in your group? Is there
That's it.
anything
That's
else
it.
to
So
report?
that's it. Yeah, that's it so far.
Yes.
I put a group together, so we're going to be working the document. It's still in draft form, so we'll hopefully have the final document by Wednesday or before the next meeting come around. We'll have the final document
Yes. And
before the
people
next
can
meeting.
you can feel free to join. We're going to put the Zoom link out, and feel free to join. As Trevor said, we don't need a whole lot of numbers, but the reality is that when we sometimes, if we have numbers who are working, it's good because then the work is shared, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And these things sometimes it's tough, and you might not want to be about part of a group, but you say, Marcia, I want to come and help with administration, even to come
Yeah.
to set up the breakout rooms and people enter. You welcome people as they come in, and just to monitor the day on Zoom. That's great too. You might just wanna just be make up the administration team. That's great. This is our
Yeah.
nonpartisan national strategy planning meeting review that is happening. I'm hoping that the person who did the child protection bill, will be able to come on because they're doing some amazing things, you all. This
Yeah.
I love it. I love Bajans. I'm a
Yeah.
proud Bajan.
Yeah, and let me say this too. I mean, it will bring experience. I mean, you're not getting paid for it. It's volunteer work, but it is experience, and you can't take nobody can take experience away from you. And that is
No.
something you can take outside of this, and in your job and you're applying for a job, you have the experience. You're part of a group, formulate something on that I would pray it will go to a national level. I believe God is in this, and I'm just waiting to see what next He's going to do. So I would encourage the
Yes.
very young people who are now, getting into it, getting into life, to get involved and join
Yes.
the Mars to Reach show and join our meetings.
Yes, most
Mm.
definitely. And I'm hoping we can get some UWI students to be part of this. This is, to me, I see Miss McLean here, and I know we share
I
this.
want I
This is,
want to comment when you're
yes,
finished, and I want to
yes,
respond to Martin
yes,
Greenwich when you finish.
yes. That we share. There's something we share, Miss McLean, and it's about young people. And what would be great, Trevor, is if you had even 3 or 4 young persons on this team that's 18 and under, or even,
Mm.
on your team. That
Yeah,
is now when we are talking about talking about change.
yeah,
Every all of these teams, you should have somebody shadowing you, a young person shadowing you.
yeah.
Now we're talking. So we go, I'm gonna work on something,
Mm.
and with Yui, with their give back program, Miss McLean, because we Praise
Yeah.
Academy is a member of that, and we get Yui students who work with us, and to myself and Miss McLean, we will see if we can get some Yui students attached to this, so that they are learning, as they go along, and we're preparing for the future. So, thank you so much, Trevor, for coming on. Oh, Miss McLean, your question was to Trevor
No,
or to
I
Martin?
just, but Trevor can stay while I say, but
Yes.
I just read this note, Martin Greenwich saying I expect a full risk analysis would be performed on all suggestions proposals. And I would say yes, but beyond that, I would ask Mr. Greenwich what assistance can he offer in these things? Because clearly anything that is
Is
proposed,
she?
which has any business or commercial type things would be properly done. But I don't know. He can tell us what he is willing to do. But before Trevor goes, as I was listening to a point he made, and as I said to him yesterday, I see an engineer's mind at work. Um, but he made the point about you can't go ahead. You can't. We can't see a total change in rules, for example. But as he was talking, I challenge housing developers, persons developing housing, individuals building standalone houses to look at this roofing situation as an option for households to when we talk about water capture and storage, because I can see we're talking about climate smart and we and water resources. We hear Barbados is a water scarce country, and I hear people contending that. I would say yes, depending on how you define it. What it is a country that has access to a lot of water at different points in time, and we need to be more strategic in how we seek to capture it. But I believe that, and I challenge, and I put a challenge now to credit unions, because I've been saying to them that this is an area that they can get into. They give loans to individual members for housing, and they have the resources where they can leverage those things. And I'm not going to spend time trying to see how it can be done. I've spoken to that in credit union circles, but they themselves can look to develop some housing initiatives using this kind of technique and technology to and as for their members who are in the business of housing. So I believe it's something that can be introduced in new housing developments. I don't know what Trevor's thought is on that.
No, I don't have any thoughts right now. I was just here as you were thinking. I was talking. I was remembering your brother. And in my days, I used to drive around and would listen to the VOB at the time and listen to your brother speaking and hearing his passion. And he actually helped to get me interested in understanding or learning a little more about politics. But that's just as I was thinking. And I was wondering to where Marcia gone. So we will need to. Oh, she's
Hello,
back.
She's back
you guys were still on. It just bumped me off.
Yeah.
You guys were still on.
Yeah.
Good, good. And I was comfortable. I know you would have carried on.
Yeah, we would have carried on.
Yes, yes, you're hearing me. You're hearing me. Okay, wonderful. Well, one thing I found out, guys, is that where we're getting the echo, the StreamYard informed me that those of you who are using an Android device, that there is a bug. And so what you have to do is to wear your headphones. So Lumumba, if you're listening, I think it's Lumumba and also Kimar. So if you might have to if you put on headphones, they said the echo will stop. So that is where we're getting the echo from. So yes. Okay, so Kimar is back in, and okay, Miss McLean is gone now. Your guest Kimar is on Android or Chrome. This is what StreamYard is saying, which has a bug that causes echo. Google is working to fix it. For now, please ask your guests to wear headphones to avoid echo or use a different browser. We've also informed your guests. Thank you, StreamYard. So, Kimar, StreamYard is asking you to wear headphones. Okay.
You can hear me well?
Yes, Kimar, you're there. You need to wear headphones.
I don't think I have any functioning iPhones.
Okay, so how we're going to have to do it, whenever you're speaking, then I will have to turn off my computer. But I think we will talk to you off air about headphones to you. So yes. So let me just, we're going to get to you then, Kimar, very soon. But thank you so much, Trevor. Appreciate you coming on, and we will hear from you hopefully next Sunday after you've had your other meeting. Great work, and thanks to the entire team. And those of you who want to join, we're going to ask you to watch for when we put up the Zoom link and join the Zoom on Saturday, and let's change Barbados. Let's do this together, guys. We can do it. God bless you.
And yes, it will be on the events page. When the time is updated, the link will be placed on the events page on the MarciaWeekShow.com.
Yes. So if I go to the MarciaWeekShow.com, you're saying to us that I'm going to see
events.
Yes. Okay. So I'm here, and for the newsletter, you're saying.
No, for the events, because that is an event coming up on Saturday. So when you click on that,
yes,
you're going to get the code right there, and
okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So here we are on the events page. So this is the MarciaWeekShow.com, and you go, there's a home, you see newsletters will be right there that we were talking about earlier. You'll get news updates and events. So on the events page is what you click to get the link for the show. Thank you. I see what you're saying now, Trevor.
Have a good night, everyone.
Where you get the link for. Thank you, Trevor. This is where you get the link for the discussion that we're going to have on Saturday. Again, it's a strategy meeting, right? And you can come in and if you're serious, if we're not into jokers and people there that are partisan, right? We are not into that. It's a non-partisan effort. And so if that's what you are, if you're coming because you're trying to push what is already existing and to prove the people they're wrong, it's not about that, because what they're doing is looking at everything. And if you come with that right attitude, we'll be able to get something done, right? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you so much again, Trevor. Let me see who I have in here. Okay, so Kimar is in, and I think Mr. McLean dropped out. I mean, we're playing tonight. Oh, Mr. McLean is here. Your mic is just off. You're muted. Miss McLean, you're muted.
Sorry, I was telling you that I turned my camera off because I might be multitasking. So when I'm
Yes,
listening, I use the
yes,
opportunity to get up and do something else or move from my chair. So it's not that I'm
yes.
not listening. I'm here, but
Yeah, I
I'm
just didn't
hearing.
didn't see your name. I didn't see your name, so that's
Oh,
what I
okay.
why I thought so. Yes,
Yeah, so
but
I am here, but my camera might be off because I might move
yes,
from, so you wouldn't see an empty chair. Okay.
chair. Yes, thank you so much. Well, we have Miss McLean Kimar here, and we're waiting to see if the person who is doing the child protection bill will be able to come on and give a report. So we will wait to see that. But we want to get into some of the current issues that of the day, and there is a whole thing of the this debt, and you know, I don't know, Miss McLean. Kimar, I wanted to jump in here tonight on this one because I don't know. I saw that there is a 903 million loan plan. I'm trying to understand.
I think Kimar, if he's on, you should give him a chance to maybe speak to that. What I am seeing is clearly, and I'll just say this quickly, and then we can go over to Kimar. Uh, the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, because that's her portfolio, one of her portfolios, is saying that they will need to borrow this money. A
Mhm.
number of things are happening, and Kimar can speak to this. I get the impression that we are not seeing the kinds of revenues that the government needs to finance its operations. And it is decided that it's going to borrow, it has to borrow, because I mean, when you see a difference between revenues and expenditures, they have to find a way to deal with it. And so it would be interesting because I'm sure Kimar has had a chance to look at the numbers. So let's hear from him, and
Yeah,
hear what he's saying.
yeah. Go
Hey,
ahead,
good,
Kimar. I'm gonna turn off my camera, my mic.
good night, everyone. Glad to be here again on a beautiful Sunday evening. Um, I saw all the others in
Kimar, you have to
earlier.
speak up. Speak up,
Hey,
please.
I saw all the others in earlier. Lumumba, Marcia, Maxine, Trevor Seeley. It was good to see Trevor on here. But you made mention about the government borrowing an additional $900 million from the IMF. And this should not really be a surprise to Barbadians because we have not been earning income really as a country uh, in any of our foreign exchange earnings. And I actually wrote about all of these issues that we're facing in alternate views. Um, on page 108 of the book, I would have started to speak about the reserves being boosted to US $1.4 billion, and it was just to
Kimar,
reaffirm
speak a
that.
little louder,
Hey,
please.
hey, that's well. No, you can hear me well. No, hey,
Go ahead.
hey. So I said I was speaking about government's commitment to avoiding an external devaluation of the dollar, which would mean that moving away from the peg. The government has said that they are not willing to do that. But in this case, the increasing of the foreign reserves stems from borrowing, right? So the reserves are artificially high. But the problem that we have is that the earnings from tourism are still very low, and the government can't seem to get the tourism earnings back up to an acceptable level. Now we have the changes in the international business sector, which is also impacting income into Barbados. We also have the war, which is driving up oil prices, which means that the government has to be paying out more foreign exchange to buy oil. And these factors continue to impact the amount of income that Barbados earns in foreign exchange. We are also banned from international credit markets, so we can't borrow from private banks. And we are banned because the government defaulted on the foreign debts. And that was one of the conditionalities of defaulting on the foreign debts. So as the government increased these reserves, what they did not do was to link the reserves to developmental policy to increase the possibility of earned income for locals. So locals have not been benefiting from all of the borrowing. Right? What the government did was to put taxes on you because they're committed with the IMF to what you call a primary surplus. And that is a primary surplus is basically what the government spends minus what it earns. Right? So the government has been trying to reduce the amount of expenditure it spends on local services. That is expenditure in ministries, at the hospitals, at schools, and doing roads, building houses. The government has been strategically reducing all of that expenditure, but they still have been borrowing alongside of the reduction. But the borrowing really was to prop up the budget. So all of the fancy things that the government has been doing, um, that is coming from borrowing money from the IMF really, like, because we are not earning enough locally to do it. But what we must say though is that the taxation levels that the government has collected through its time from 28 now, they have actually collected the highest levels of tax revenue in Barbados' economic history, where the sewage tax, where the taxes on tourism, the highest levels. So they actually implemented the highest taxation levels through any administration we ever had, right? And it's all to participate in the international community. So strategically, the IMF has been getting more and more and more power because the IMF is now directly supporting the government's budget. So they're able to direct and dictate what or how government policy impacts on the people. Right? So they set us the targets in the bird plan, and the government has just been implementing what the IMF says throughout the bird plan. Right? So the $900 million that you're seeing, um, that is to back up the government's budget. So all of these strategic plans the government has to build hotels, to do this, or not hotels so much, but all the government's plans really are now actually directly financed by the IMF as opposed to from direct taxation or tax collection. Like, the impact these things have on the country is that it causes price increases and it causes inflation because there's something called a self-correcting adjustment due to the loss of income. So when you lose your income, you have to adjust the amount of money that you spend. But the government can't just cut drastically like that. So that's why they have to keep borrowing from the IMF to prop up the amount of expenditure that it puts out. Right? They in their debt restructuring wrote off or swiped off actually $1.6 billion belonging to the central bank. They still have not repaid that as yet. So the government actually owes the central bank $1.6 billion. They swiped off the money from the NAS. Was another $1 billion. And they can't use the NAS anymore to finance government budget. What the government did know or did to the pensioners and the investors, they actually restructured government treasury bills. So whereas citizens used to invest in the treasury bills and then the treasury bill money would go into financing budgets, the government actually completely destroyed treasury bills. And that was only ever done in Russia, Ukraine, and Uruguay. So we actually made world economic history when the government restructured those treasury bills. I know they don't have access to the money because people don't have confidence that government would keep their investments safe and that they might go through another debt restructuring and cut through another IMF austerity program. So to stem all of this, the government has to keep increasing or creating scenarios where the private sector could keep increasing prices, because increased prices means increased tax collection, because tax collection is charged as a percentage of price. So every time the price go up, the percentage that the government has to collect will increase. So the government has been living off of the private sector and a lot of their price gouging. So the price gouging benefits the government because taxation is charged as a percentage of the price. So the government will never try to reduce the price levels right now, especially on the IMF conditions, because they don't have any other options to collect income from. Right? So this $900 million again will cause another jump in prices again, so that the government could collect additional revenue next year. Because again, you're charging the percentage. So if they send up the prices again, that means that the amount of taxes they collect next year from price increases will go up. And that's how the government has been raising funds really directly from the people through all of these jacked up prices. Right? So don't mind all the price compact and the this and the that. The government has been collecting record levels of tax revenues, and the central bank to show that. But I want to come to the end by reading an article from Harry Russell. He spoke about this thing, and he asked the question: is the Barbados dollar secured? He said the heading "the Barbados dollar secured" is open to several interpretations depending on who is making the statement and to whom the statement is directed. And he said that balance sheets are often meant to add confidence to a business. Adding, according to our balance sheet, Barbados, the Barbados dollar is secure only if the IMF and other lending concerns are prepared to lend us more money in the future. Lending us more money means further debt. There was a time when we were targeted to be within 6% of the trading gap before COVID. Because of this, lending agencies have been prepared to assist, but the situation now is precarious because in June this year, he wrote an article entitled Balancing of a Balance Sheet. And so far, nobody refuted his argument that our central bank has to be refloated as its balance sheet has been cat's paddled by the bonds that could not be paid for by our government after the disaster of, well, we said the previous administration. But the situation with the central bank has not improved. He said that the Barbados dollar is taking a beating because there was no money to pay the banks and the old people holding the bonds. So the investor had to take a beating. Furthermore, the government had to find somewhere to put the balancing of the debt by borrowing, and the debt is all set by IMF 417 million, the IDB 400 million, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development 200 million, the Development Bank of Latin America 200 million, along with other foreign exchange borrowings, all of which are held at the central bank. On the other side of the balance sheet, to cover the gaping hole in the name of the government will have to fix this hole, and failure to plug it will be worse than when we were bombarded with downgrades. He also went on to say that we used to heavily depend on offshore earnings, which is the same international business sector the Prime Minister no address from foreign businesses, but the minimum 15% tax rate that we now have to charge businesses does not argue well for the future. And we said that on the show. So what he's getting at is that we're still on the brink of a precipice, and there's no such thing as a secure Barbados dollar, just as there was no such thing as a secure Jamaican dollar. And he would like to see all the publicity for Barbados at the COP26 and all of the world travelings, not so much into loans, but material help and grants. And the world is speaking about reducing carbon and other things, so he wants more investment into the island. So the article basically ended that way, and I just wanted to agree with some of the statements that he made about the actual borrowing, a perpetual cycle of borrowing from the IMF, where we have to be constantly borrowing from them to repay existing debts. And that cycle will actually continue straight up to 2037, as agreed under the plan. And we will have to be paying out $1 billion in interest every year straight up to 2037. Over to you, Marcia.
Oh my goodness. Oh my, and my dog decides to start barking. Sorry about that. But you know, I think he's barking for a right reason. But
He
you know, when
agrees with what you said.
he agrees, he agrees. You know, when I think when I listen, I'm listening to Kimar, and you know what he was saying about the 903 million loan, this 903 million dollars, and how, I mean, ultimately what happens is that there's a, you know, it affects their prices. This is how, and I love how he made it relatable to us, you know, just regular people, and how the government, for the government, that works well for them, because then they are, is increasing taxes to them. So that's really really interesting. And to think that we will have to continue on this path until 2037. Did you hear that, Miss McLean? What are your thoughts on what Kimara just said?
No, I think that what Kimar is painting for us is a pretty worrisome picture. And because there are a couple of things. One, and he made the point while he was speaking, I was searching to see if I could find any information on the earnings of the tourism sector. And the only number I came up with was an estimated figure for the first 9 months of last year of 500 and something million dollars. Now, we continue to see the government borrowing. He's giving you the reasons why they're borrowing from the IMF. And we heard that it was the cheapest money, but then we heard that it is not, it's a variable interest rate, which means that it can change, and it has changed, translated into more interest costs, higher money, amounts of money having to be paid as interest. And in order to service these kinds of loans, the government has to earn foreign exchange. Note that Kimar said that the because of inflation, because of higher prices and so on, the government is in earning significantly more revenues. For example, for every vatable item in the supermarket, when the price goes up, the 17.5% that the government get increases as well. Because if something costs $100 today, is going to get $17.50 when it goes up to $110. They get an extra $1.75 on that $10. You see, so that's, I think that's what the figure would be. Yeah, you know, so it is worrisome that the borrowing continues, but they have to pay bills, and if they're not earning their way, then it's a problem. Now, to contrast with, and it's interesting, and I can't help but speak to it from the perspective of a politician in this case, because I know the criticisms that were made by the then leader of the opposition in terms of government borrowing locally. Now, the reality is that deficit financing of you know, in other words, government in successive governments in Barbados have had situations where the expenditures were greater than the revenues taken in, because they were financing projects and so on, which were intended to create jobs and stimulate business and whatever else. What the difference, because let's say you had the previous government did not borrow a lot of foreign money from foreign suppliers of finance. They were borrowing locally. When this government came into office and they decided that they were going to cat spraddle, let me use that word, all that operated in terms of government borrowing, they then did two things. They said they weren't going to borrow from local sources, but for persons like myself who held government paper with the restructuring, they just frightened me away, because across the globe, government borrowing is supposed, people who lend to government feel very secure. But once that changed, it would take a lot for the average person to go no. So the challenge really and truly with all of this foreign currency that loans in foreign currency that we are borrowing, the question becomes how will we service it, especially in a situation where we are not seeing Barbados performing like the other jurisdictions post-COVID. I mean, we can't, we still rely heavily on tourism, but I was here looking for a note which spoke to the performance of Barbados versus the rest of the Caribbean. We have not returned. In fact, as somebody sent an article to me, and I would read what the person said to me. Our tourism performance continues to be below par. The most recent figures show that once again, Barbados being in decline and having fallen woefully short for 2023, sorry, with arrival figures January to August being 13.7% behind the tourism arrivals for 2019. So we have not gotten back there. On the other hand, the person is saying to me, in the meanwhile, Jamaica is showing 6.7% increase over 2019 arrivals, and Grenada with a 3% on 2019 arrivals. St. Martin has increased by 31.9%, Aruba by 8.1%, Dominican Republic by 18.9%, Curacao by 21%, and the Virgin Islands by 21.4%.
Wow.
And so what they're really saying is that these other countries have rebounded. Barbados has not. And therefore, the question is, how do we pay the debt? But there's another issue. We have a lot of regional and international businesses operating here, our commercial banks, for example. I mean, we have a large, Trinidad has companies in the business of distribution, buying and selling for consumption. Now, what they are doing essentially is adding to the demand for foreign exchange, because if I'm importing items, even if it's a Trinidad company supplying Barbados, we don't pay Trinidad in Barbados dollars. So the question really, I mean, so when I hear the government talk about the high level of foreign exchange, I mean foreign reserves, sorry, that they have foreign reserves in borrowed money that has to be paid back. It is not money that was earned and accumulated from, the productive sector in Barbados. So it really, all that I've said is just to reinforce the point that Kimara made, that we are in difficult times. My brother was the economist, not me, but I think I did enough to be able to relate to what Kimara is telling us and to the concerns that Barbados has.
Yeah.
Right now, our tourism sector is limping along. And worse yet, Marcia, and listeners, my concern is I have not heard anything creative. I have not heard anything that is likely to stimulate business in the tourism sector. And far from that, where there was an effort to enhance the offerings and I've spoken to it on this program, I believe previously. For example, as we approach the end of the year and the beginning of the tourism season, for about 4 or 5 successive years, well, more than 5, probably beginning like 2009 going forward, we saw a small but very lucrative yachting sector. You don't see that now. We have not seen it for a while. You know where it's gone? It has gone off to Grenada and St. Vincent and so on. And this SD and H99 is saying lots of other countries are investing in their own tourism. Right now, it's Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia, purposely to bring folks there. West Africa is developing the beachfront lands, whether it is Sierra Leone, Ghana, the Gambia, and so on. But I want to say something. This comment has stimulated something for me. I believe I heard a lot of talk made about earlier this year of Barbados's participation in a trade show, a tourism trade show in Saudi Arabia, I believe. And we know that we have expanded our relations with the UAE, etc. Right now, as much as we can talk, except for the few persons who sail to Barbados on their yacht. For example, I know the Emir of Qatar used to come here almost annually. I don't know what has happened with that. He would sail to Barbados or his family on their yacht. One set would fly in, and then they would shift and one take on, and they may have some time stay at, let's say, Sandy Lane or whatever. But the reality is, right now, we do not have hotel offerings and support services that by and large cater to that market, whether it is in types of rooms, in terms of the level of um, what should I call it, the class of hotels, in terms of the kinds of demands they have in terms of diet and those kind of things. So even if we pursue them, it will take a while. What I would expect, or what I would have hoped that would have continued, was a pursuit of investment in the kinds of hotels that would be attractive to that market. But we can talk about it. But if we don't meet the demands, then we're not going to see business there. So I am not seeing anything. We went, well, he's quietly disappeared. But I remember there was a big song and dance when they brought this guy to head the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. And he was supposed to have all of this experience. And he came and like a flash in a pan, he just came and disappeared, and nothing to show for all that we spent on him. Sam Lars is a Ford Diamond, but in addition, I'll tell you what, if you have ever been to Qatar and more especially UAE, the level of, how should I put it, luxury that you have is amazing. And I will give you an example. I remember a few years ago, one of my colleagues at the time, one of my cabinet colleagues, had to quickly try to get a room on the West Coast for Sandy Lane, I will call the name, for a visiting guy. I'm not sure if it's UAE, but from one of those states. I think he was traveling with a child and son, and they were staying in St. Philip, and they wanted to find another place. Now, the point I'm making is that this is an extremely high-end market for the most part, and then there are the religious considerations. In some, if you Google, do some research on what people are looking for, what travelers out of the Middle East, the Gulf states. Let me use that classification. They're looking for hotels with something, even to the point where, and you talk about, and this would probably apply to Saudi Arabia, that sometimes you go to a hotel and one floor is dedicated to women only. So in other words, the women stay on one floor, so there are a whole set of things that are required. And so if you're going to do that, are you going to, is there adequate, supply of villas where you may, that might be an area that you can use to attract them. And then because it is an extremely, for those travelers, that, as I said, it's very high end. And so there are certain requirements. So Sam Lars is for Diamond and for some, but then there are still some others that may want something even more luxurious. No, that may, so I'm just saying that we talk, but I'm not seeing it follow through with, the appropriate kind of offerings.
There is a SD and H99. Thank you. I see you, and I'm reading the comments, and I'm putting up things that are going to, moving the conversation along. Those are the comments that are, and I think this is a good one. But before, think about that, Miss McLean, because
let me comment on that right away, Marcia.
Yeah,
I will comment on it right away. Barbados has a UNESCO site Bridge is either I always something to get right. It's Bridgetown and it's historic garrison, or historic Bridgetown and it's garrison. I think it's Bridgetown and historic garrison. And this is something that worries me because, and I'll use something that's very topical. I have not heard of any investigations, etc., beyond the reporting of the robbery of the at the museum in the West Wing of Parliament. But what sent chills through me was when I read an article in The Nation, and the writer of the article referred to a part of our historic Parliament building as the condemned West Wing. And my question, condemned by whom? And why? I mean, condemned by whom is one thing, but why is it in a situation where somebody can even dream of describing it, as condemned? Now, this is a 300, and I want to get the years right. It's over 375 years. I have to go back and check how long ago was the 375th anniversary. But we are talking about a historic building, beautiful building as it is. And I know that people were concerned about part of the decoration, but nobody was asking what happened to those items that were taken from that museum. You know, in fact, as I listened to the story, I was going to say, Marcy, I still hope you have the replica of the jacket worn that you used in your movie, because they may have to ask you to lend them that to be able to recreate.
We made a replica of it.
I remember you made that by a Barbadian living
yes.
overseas.
Yeah,
I know the story of trying to get it here in time for your movie as well.
Yeah, and it saddens me, and we talked about it on this show actually, that those it's missing, and I'm just waiting to hear what's going to happen to it. But this idea that she has here, I mean, how are we going to have these sites as tourism attraction when we're getting ready to bulldoze a whole set of them from out of the in town, in Bridgetown? Are they moving stuff? Hitting down Jamaica, we say licking down things to make up big hotels and so on. Aren't they doing that?
This is the irony is that the very people who were criticizing and obstructing and going to court are now trumpeting and I speak of no other than Ambassador David Commission, who went to court in relation to the planned construction across from the Bethel Methodist Church. But I'll leave that there. The question is what exactly is happening? In fact, I want to ask the question, what is happening in Bridgetown? I don't know if you've driven through or walked through Bridgetown recently, but there is a level of, and this perhaps is a reflection.
We spoke about it on the show. That's the place to pop down. Let me just put it in layman's term. It's just like there is something that is over it. That is just, this is not Barbados. But hold that point, Miss McLean. I want to rush back to Kimar on this, and then we are going to then look at this comment, and we will come back to this comment. Okay. Kimar, someone sent me something here in my WhatsApp, and I sent it to you. Kimar, I hope you're still listening. It says, note carefully that the 903 million loan plan excludes 220.6 million in financing to be provided by the central bank, and another 495 million in treasury bills, which will be rolled over as per the agreed terms in 2018 domestic debt exchange. Thus, the borrowing for the financial year is well in excess of 903 million, as the heading suggests. So this person who, I can't say the name of the person, but somebody who knows what they're saying is that this is going to be, this 903 million, it's more looking like 9 and 6 is what is that, 15, 16, 1600 1600 million. It's looking more like that.
Almost 2 billion, almost 2 billion, 1.6.
1.6 million. Kimar, you have any thoughts about that, or what are your thoughts about that? Is this your calculation as well?
Yeah, well, the 903 million is only from the IMF program. That's what's coming in through the IMF. But what the person spoke about was the domestic component of the financing. So there are two components to government financing: the foreign finance component and the domestic finance component. So what you're saying is the foreign finance component from the IMF specifically, which excludes also bilateral lending. So our major bilateral lenders are the Chinese, right? So we have to there's a component in there that you can see specifically how much bilateral lending the government receive uh, as well. So we also borrow from Canada as well directly. So the domestic component of the financing comes from the Central Bank of Barbados through the printing of money. So that's what it's called, printing money. When the central bank directly finances government budgets, right? The government passed a law when they came in, which actually restricted uh, the printing of money down to at least I think it was 10%. I think it was there is a cap and a restriction on the printing of money, but the government is still indeed printing money, and the fact that the central bank has to directly fund your budget proves that. Uh, the NAS before the government restructured it, and the last administration used the NAS to finance government budgets as well. But the pension reform and the IMF program actually now restricts that, so you don't have NAS in the domestic component anymore. Uh, you also could borrow from the local financial system, which are the banks, the insurance, uh, but the restructuring again slowed down some of that. So when you combine the two, which are the domestic and the foreign, is where you get the total uh, financing requirement for government. So what you see here is foreign, what the person spoke about is domestic, and when you combine the two, is a roughly close to $2 billion in financing, and that's not good to have $1 billion in deficit requirements. We will maintain these levels of deficits going on through, as I said, 2035. And the IMF strategically every year will try to get the government to close it. What the government spends money on: Barbadians, roads, housing programs, education, sending people to school. Those are the things that will receive the cuts to bring the budgets back into line, right? And that's what the IMF focuses on: cutting your expenditures to get you to run balanced budgets. Right now, we are in deficit, and our deficits are over $1 billion in financing requirements. We also have to look at the interest rate requirements. Interest rate requirements are $1 billion as well. So that's $1 billion in interest payments leaving the country, along with $1 billion deficit. So we're actually in a worse position when the LP had to manage the global financial crisis, and they had to run $1 billion deficits to stop the financial slide and to stop the country from caving in at the time. And that's what caused the printing of money and the borrowing from the NAS to prop up the country from falling down. But what we have now is legal restrictions on these institutions from the IMF program and the reforms, and the government, that requirement or what the government could have gotten locally. They are now saying to the IMF that we are going to borrow the equivalent from you and make specific cuts to our budgets in line with your policies, your fiscal affairs department policies. Because if you ever get a chance to look at the IMF policies, everything Barbados is doing is right out to the IMF draw. And just look at Jamaica. uh, and then you see Jamaica eventually had to devalue the dollar because there's no country in the world that ever defaulted on its debts, went into the IMF program, and did not have a external devaluation. But I'm gonna hand over back to you, Marcia. But there's a point I also want to touch on, called the internal devaluation, and the internal devaluation is the uh, method that the government is focusing right now, as opposed to the external devaluation. So the internal devaluation is basically cutting the purchasing power of the people. So increased taxation levels will cut your purchasing power, your discretionary income. High prices, gas, light, water, telephone, supermarket. When you raise the prices, that's what you call it, internal devaluation. The restrictions on public institutions, the NAS invests and emit returns. When you cut those returns, the NAS has less money to spend on social programs. The central bank as well. When you cut central bank investment, you cut back investment that the central bank can provide for the banks that they service and the other big institutions. You cut that as well. When you cut treasury bills, you stop people who have discretionary income to invest on getting money, which could then be spending in their everyday lives to help improve the lot. So the government cut off the next um the locals, basically to take whatever money or draw whatever money they can have from the people, to have to pay back these deficits to the IMF and to the other people that they owe. You muted, Marcia.
Thank you, Kimar. I just been writing, and I think on this, there's so many parts to this, Miss McLean, that we're talking, but that we need to, if we need time. You believe that it's 9:26? I
Yeah.
can't believe, and this we have not even touched majority of the topics on the show, and but there's so much I want to go into, so much. There's just so much, and I'm really trying to figure where to go at this point. But we still have tomorrow night, right? We still have Monday. But Kimar, oh boy, you've raised so many issues here, because I wanted to know about the bilateral lending. If we have any idea how much that is, or is that part in the domestic part as well?
No, that bilateral lending, Marcy, if I might, sorry, Kimar. You're talking about borrowing from other nations. You
Mm-hmm.
talk about bilateral relations. So, for example, if you remember back in February last year, the government borrowed 115 million US, and that's the other thing, because we hear numbers, but we have to always ask ourselves, what currency are they speaking about? So, for example, the other day we heard that the government was borrowing 25 million, and then it turned out to be 25 million US from the Exempt Bank, I think it was. So, so bilateral loan would have been the 115 million US dollars borrowed from the Chinese to improve roads in the East Coast. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
Um, now that's an example of a bilateral loan. As I listen to Kimar, and I don't know, this is one of the things that one of your the students who are, if you can get a student of economics or finance, or anybody who has an interest in this, perhaps to sit down and try to do a spreadsheet
Yes.
of what has been borrowed, because I mean Kimar just spoke about when the person asked about the 903 million from the IMF, and then he correctly pointed out that that was only part of the total borrowings, because that was the external borrowings from foreign
Mm-hmm.
sources, but then you had the internal borrowings, um, from you can borrow from commercial banks, you can borrow from the public in terms of bonds and so on, from the central bank directly or whatever. So, and the thing is, that is, as you started to add up, was like 1.6 billion or more than that. And I said, I turned on my mic and said perhaps closer to 2 billion by the
2
time you're finished.
billion. Yeah.
Now, my concern is, what are the terms and conditions of those loans? What are the repayment schedules? And remember that every government assumes the responsibility for the debt that went before. So if I get a loan in 2000, that is a 20-year loan, okay? That loan would have had to be repaid over 20 years to 2020. So in 2008 or 2010 or 2015, 2018, you're still servicing that loan. Now, the other thing that we would have heard, and this again is why a spreadsheet, so that people can understand, is important. We have heard of loans, and we've heard the Prime Minister / Minister of Finance say that there is a moratorium. So it means that you borrow the money and there is a period before that goes by before you are able, you're required, not able, you're required to start to service that loan, whether in full or in part. It may be, you might be paying interest and not be part of the principal, or you may have a full moratorium so that there's a grace period before you start paying back. So all of these things, we probably need to some way of excuse me, getting a full picture of what the situation is.
While you drink there, there's somebody here, Joseph. This is what I love. I love this, Joseph. I love this. This is what I'm talking about. Joseph H.S. Cadogan, he's listening closely. And he says, if I could get the figures, I have someone in Toronto who will help in that area and send the information to me at oursolutions@gmail.com. Miss McLean, let's get on this, because even before I came on the show, I was saying, man, it would be so good if we could get this in a spreadsheet. I was thinking the same thing you're thinking. I guess it's the accounting part of me. And just to be
in
able
another
to,
life, I wanted to be an accountant, but changed my mind.
just to put it up on the screen, because I think I really am. I'm sincerely wanting to educate myself and educate the people. A while ago, I learned so much about the different types of borrowing here from between you and Kimar. So I'm saying that I think that this would be beneficial. So if we're going to take down this email, and between Miss McLean and I and Kimar, we'll try to get the figures to you, and so that you can put it up so that we can see. Let the person do it in a way that it is easily to be communicated, right? Easily, what's the word I'm looking for? It's easy that we can understand it.
Yes.
Right? So if it's in a nice spreadsheet and we can put it in a PowerPoint and really put it before the people, I think that this is okay. The person work at Price Waterhouse. Price, which one is PwC? Waters and Coopers.
Price Waterhouse, PwC, Price Waterhouse Coopers. I think
Coopers, yes,
PwC.
Yeah. So yes, Joseph, I like that, and because we've got to do something. I really like that. So let's do that. And I know Kimar will soon start to be able, once he's able to begin to put stuff in charts, and really put everything down so we can see it.
And one place to start, Marcia, would be, because as you say, to get simple, as I said, government's inherit thing. But if you start with loans, money's borrowed from under this administration, and then you can work backwards. But it is frightening how much has been borrowed, and sources of borrowing as well, because I made the point, so I'll just repeating myself, but those loans that are borrowed from foreign sources have to be paid with foreign exchange. The foreign exchange that we have, funds that we've gotten, to prop up our foreign reserves, if those funds are borrowed and not earned from foreign sources, then we also have to know that we have to pay back at some point.
Mhm.
And it is worrisome because you see, the notion of, I made reference to moratorium just now, and that is, I've heard more than once the Prime Minister say, well, we do not have to start repaying this loan until year X or Y. But that is fine. What provisions? This is another thing that we want to be able to investigate or look at. Traditionally, what the government, successive governments have done is to set aside money in what they call a sinking fund,
Mhm.
to cover future payments of loans. So in essence, you don't wait. Even if there's a moratorium of 5 or 10 years or whatever, ideally, what should be happening? There should be an agreed amount of money being set aside by the government in respect of providing for the repayment of this loan. You see?
I'm not saying they swiped out all of the money from the sinking fund. The sinking fund had at least 500 and something $million, and they sunk it to zero. And they
Uh,
have been not
thank
they're
you
not
for thank
repaying
you.
into it.
I want to thank Kimar for making that point, because I had heard something to that effect, but I was not able to check it. Now, that, Marcia, in itself is a dangerous thing, because what it is really doing, I mean, if you start to paint a picture, you've come into office and you have said, listen, we're going to do a debt restructuring. A big part of that debt restructuring was to give retired persons in Barbados. And I stress retired persons because if you looked at an analysis of the people who bought government bonds, treasury bills, and so on, in terms of private citizens, not companies buying, government paper, typically it would have been people retiring. For example, a lot of people who retire and get a gratuity, not that's it. There's I think that's the word, but in essence, you get a lump sum payment. The question is, what do I do with this lump sum? And a lot of people, other than like paying off maybe mortgages or big expense bills that they had, a lot of them took the money and put it in government paper because the interest rates were better than the bank rate, savings in a bank. And more importantly, there was this belief, because there was nothing in the past that had to to make people believe otherwise. There was this belief that this was one of the safest ways, even as a conservative, it was safe way to park your money, so to speak. So what happened? You got this lash as holders of government paper, and people lost confidence. So before and Kimar made reference to rolling over, because what happened was that there was a way in which the government would roll over to continue to finance. But in doing that, they have pretty much killed that market. And you can tell by, I haven't heard advertisements recently, but for a few months consistently, the central bank, the government was advertising bonds that they had on the market, something normally which would have been snapped up. Sometimes you hear of an issue, and before you can get to your bank in a day or two, they will tell you, sorry, they're all sold out. So when you look at all of those things, the amounts that were borrowed, the terms and conditions, the repayment time, is a problem. And then you ask yourself, where are we getting the foreign exchange to do this?
Miss McLean, I tell you, listen to this. It's not easy. It feels, it can feel like you're in a hole. And then when you see something like this in the newspaper today, you're wondering, I mean, people are asking, how can we get a no confidence vote? I mean, the reality is that a lot of people don't understand. I was saying that with somebody this morning, is that without an opposition in there, we can't do can we?
But no, I mean, no, we do not have any, the citizens don't have any power. We don't have any legislation in relation to recalling a member of parliament or our government. And the reality with no confidence motions, typically, unless you have a very small margin, if the government has a significant margin, they're not going to, unless you're not going to vote for themselves. I mean, that is something that the only no confidence right now is to wait till they call elections.
So you're
And
saying, Miss McLean, so let's be real with the people, because I'm getting
Yeah.
this is a call. Are you, is there any way that the people themselves can force like a by-election, an early election? Is that
No,
something the people
not
can
not
do?
not according to the rules that govern elections and that kind of thing. No.
So according to the laws of the land, because a lot, you get a lot of this, and we keep hearing, I see it in the comment.
I see it. I see it
each
coming up.
night.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
it comes up each night because people want a way out. I was asked by people even overseas saying, okay, so can you guys get an early election? Can there be a by-election? What can happen? And so you are saying, and this is what Caswell has been saying to us as well, because I like to go with facts and
Mhm.
what is there. And the facts is that we cannot do a no confidence motion because we do not have anybody who they're not going to vote against themselves. So that's not going to happen.
Right.
And then secondly, there's nothing in our constitution, nothing
Right.
in our
The
laws
rules right
that
now.
in our rules at this moment that would allow us to
No.
the people to be able to call for an early election.
No.
There is nothing. And so we have to look at other ways. So guys, that way is not going to work. That way is not going to work.
No, I think you're correct. And what and even an early election. Let me share some what I see as some real facts. The last election was called. It was 3.5 years into a 5-year term. It was 3.5 years.
Mhm.
Okay, we've been talking about pensions for members of parliament. The current rules say that to qualify for pension, you have to serve 2 terms, and those 2 terms must be a minimum of 8 years. Okay? 3.5 years from 8 years leaves 4.5 years. If the prime minister were to call elections under 4.5 years, I mean, she can, but if she were to call elections under 4.5 years, there will be a number of persons who could very well be upset, because let's assume that she did that and some people who were in for a second term lost their seats. They would have served 2 terms, but let's say she called it in 4 years instead of 5. 3.5 and 4 is 7.5. And unless the legislation was changed to reduce the period for which people can qualify for pension, and I would hate to think that anybody would contemplate that, given all that Barbadians have said. So it is unlikely that elections will come under 4.5 years.
So we're going to have
Unless
to endure this. So Miss McLean, somebody's asking here. Okay. There's Colin Roach is saying, Miss McLean, are you saying that each constituency can't petition for a by-election? Are you aware of a
Well,
law that says that?
I don't know, Colin. He would have to show me where the petition for a by-election comes when somebody resigns or dies and there's a vacancy in the constituency.
Okay.
I
So
have.
so
I,
Mr.
in
Roach,
fact,
then
let me just switch across my table, Marcia, and sorry for
listen,
doing that.
this is the female Caswell, and that's what I like. It's the same way when people were going around saying Barbados didn't have a constitution, and Caswell was able to show us we have a constitution, just that you didn't know that one was put in place. So
Well, no,
we
we
need to
have
go
a
with
constitution.
facts.
We have
We
a
need to go with
constitution
facts.
which was the constitution. The Barbados, the constitution was originally the schedule to the Barbados Independence Order 1966. Now I have another copy where, remember, there were some amendments made to this constitution, and I have a copy here as well. But what I was looking, if you look in the constitution, I was just going to look under the whole issue of because this was the amendment was done to cover things like the president instead of, governor general. I'm looking to see if what it says perhaps about elections. But I don't know, as Colin is asking, there's no petition for by election. If you can find a way to force the member of parliament to step down, and I'm not advocating any civil disobedience. Somebody had up earlier, but as I told you, there's no provision, and I'm no constitutional expert, but I know of no provision. People, I can tell you, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't think it's appropriate, as I sit as a member of the Parliament Reform Commission, to
Well,
speak
I
out.
mean, you don't have to say anything
No,
more
yeah,
on it.
what I'm saying is, the point I'm making is people have been raising with the commission the issue of recall of MPs and so on, but it does not now exist.
It
But
does not know
people are
exist.
saying we need to have some kind of provisions for recall and so on, so that it does not now exist. So what has to happen is people have to demand of government greater information and action on these things.
Yeah,
For example,
which is not forthcoming, and not forthcoming. And I want to say, turn off their Kimar 1 second. Yeah, what I want to say is this, that that there are many recourses that people have because we went out and voted for them, and this is me speaking now, not Miss McLean. I'm saying that there are many recourses, and people are putting in here. Now, I put on marches that are make sure we get all the permits, and the police. Would you believe, up to this week they called me at my house and said, hold on, you don't have a march? Aren't you coming for the permit? Came out, you heard that? The police called me here. I was here laying down in my house on Friday and Thursday. The senior superintendent, one of them, called me, Mrs. Weeks, what happened? We're not seeing you. So I make sure I follow, but I believe, I thank God for our ancestors, and thank God that they everything did not always go by the books, and so we have to look at everything. There are strikes that can happen. I always say that I'm not going to just go and take people into a whole civil disobedience thing. People need to sit down and know how they're going to bail out themselves and what they're going to do. I'm not that kind of girl, because people have their families, husbands have their wives, etc. It is something that you will have to sit down and you have to decide you're going to be a bosser. You understand? There's a need for a bosser kind of situation, and there's need for there comes a time, because I'm telling you, if our ancestors did not do civil disobedience, sometimes we would not be here. Let's just talk reality. There needs of strikes, there needs of sit-outs, there needs a time when we don't go to work. We need to employ some of everything. So, and I'm speaking, it's not Miss McLean speaking, so because of the capacity that she's in, I am speaking, and I'm just saying that it is true, the people are right, that there are many other things that you can do. But I'm saying, I know a lot of people saying to me, go and march on the parliament. I sat down and I spoke with the police. I have the Public Order Act. If you do that, you're going to be arrested. Okay, understand that. If you're going to be arrested, I'm not saying not to do it. Sit down and think about it. Think about it and plan how you're going to get your bail out, right? Figure it out ahead of time, right? And think about what you're going to do. But if you can't just get up and turn up at Parliament and say you're going to, actually, you can't go to any government building in Bridgetown. You can't at any of those. When I say government building, like anywhere any minister is in. Once a sitting minister, there's a sitting minister of government, you can't go to those buildings to march. So you have to now sit down, and we have to be responsible about it. That's just how I see it. Somebody else might come along and might do something else, and you know what? That might be exactly what they need. Okay. And yes, I agree, we need to do something before 2026. What is that going to be, and who is going to take Who is going to, everybody, they come, Miss McLean, and telling me march on the parliament. And when the marches are even going out, some of these same people who are saying go march on the parliament, they're not even there. So they want a few of us to go and get locked up when we march at the parliament. And when I'm in there, they don't have 2 shillings to bail out the people. We need to be able to have enough money that we can. I'm a practical person. And I told my husband when something happened there, and I told him if that wasn't fixed, I said, I tell you, Dave, I'm planning to get locked up today. You could tell him. I told him that 2 weeks ago. I told him that 2 weeks ago, and I told my police friends, I said, there's a time I'm coming here, but there's a time depending on what is happening, and I make that decision. Marcia Weeks, I make a decision for myself, okay? So I'm just being very stern about that so we understand what we're doing and go in it wide-eyed, open. Anyway, Kimar. Sorry, Kimar. I had to jump on that preaching there. Go ahead, Kimar.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Know how to get something. Right. I just wanted to follow up from a point Maxine made about the sinking fund. Just to repeat that in alternative views, I spoke about the sinking fund on page 194, which was said of concern is the depletion of the sinking fund, which stood at $598 million in 2017. However, the figure stood at $14 million in 2021. Right? And again, the sinking fund is an asset which the government pays into, intended for payments to foreign loans. Right? And I don't even know what to call that. That's rape. Don't that's close to $600 million down to $14 million. Right? But I also want to remind everybody that we went through COVID, and COVID really hit Barbados hard. Uh, the lockdowns, the lockdowns actually encouraged the government to put some of their services online, and that intended to save them. Because the government has a plan to go fully cashless, take Barbados into the cashless society, which includes bringing all government services online. So major expenses that the government had, like wages and salaries, grants to state-owned enterprises, and the delivery of some of the goods and services, again, like the hospitals and education, these continue to eat large chunks of money from government revenues. Right? So the IMF, through the BERT program, as it moved forward, if you read the documentation, there's a continued mention about reduction of budgets to these areas. Right? So that's why basically we honor the BERT plan. To get us out, the BERT plan creates a circumstance for private sector investment, and the government was heavily relying on the private sector to pull them through. But the private sector here and private sector through the Caribbean seem to be very hesitant uh, about investing without government backing or without government guarantee. But what the IMF did was to instruct the government that they can no longer be guaranteeing debts for the corporate players, and therefore you're not seeing the investment or the thirst to invest in the private sector because the government is not putting up the money, or they can't put up the money because of the restrictions of the IMF program, and that's part of the failure for the Hayat. I could tell you if the government was funding the money for the Hayat would have gone up, but because it has to come from the pockets of the investors, you're not seeing anything happening because the IMF uh restrict that practice, right? What the government did, and it's just showing how thirsty the government is for money. Moody's said that the government has a liquidity problem, and when you have a liquidity problem, that means you're struggling for cash flow, right? And Moody's said in 2021 that our assessment of Barbados's susceptibility to event risk is set at B, driven by elevated government liquidity risk. And at this point, the payment of debt settlement in bonds and the $100 million being offered from the central bank in bonds in Barbados indicates that the government is indeed short of liquidity. Right? The government passed what you call a debt settlement bill, and the debt settlement bill agreed to pay Barbadians in bonds, and the bill enabled the government to settle all its obligations due to the people and to make provision for the creation of what they call Series J bonds. And these bonds created under the Section 4 shall be issued to a person whose land was acquired by the government under the Land Acquisition Act, Cap 228. And as you know, Miss Ram, she got no compensation for her land up to today. I saw her about 2 weeks ago and I asked her what was the position. She said that up to now the government still has not paid her for compulsorily acquiring her lands. It also said that a person who had a legal claim against the government, would have been paid in bonds as well. So if you sued the government and you won the case, the government, through the debt settlement bill, paid you in bonds. If you had any medical injuries and the government owed you, they were paying you in bonds, right? So that was just all to tackle IMF stipulation that the government had to be clear of all arrears by a specific time, right? And when that didn't work, they came up with the boss program, and all two failed to raise the required amount of money that they were supposed to raise. Boss one, the first time they came out, they called it forced savings. Then when the people kick up and kick back at it, they then changed it to the Barbados Optimal Savings Scheme. It didn't raise the money it was supposed to raise. Then they brought out boss two, and the wicked thing that they did was to say that you have to go through the program and you could claim back after. They were not giving some of the people a choice if they want to invest in the program or not. And that was essentially a way to cut public servant salaries. Okay? Because the government was short on money, they short on liquidity, so they cut your salary smartly through these boss programs. But it still did not raise the amount of money that they needed to raise in order to create the circumstance where the private sector could then go in and do investing. So that is why none of the budgeted projects really came on the stream, with the exception of the St. Lawrence, an exception to COVID expenditure. Right? Outside the COVID expenditure, no developments have happened in Barbados at any substantial level to create any economic growth, any job growth, any industrial growth. So I challenge the governor of the central bank's forecast of Barbados said that the economy grew because he cannot identify one sector that has had any sustainable job growth or income growth in it through the last year or so. So basically the government is just in a rat race, and they're trying to find money any and everywhere they can because they need to make money to pay back the loans and to pay back the IMF. Because if we default on these loans, it's not like we could do what we did locally and just write it off. Right? So this where we don't have to be careful. Uh, what happened to Jamaica? What happened to Guyana? And what happened to Trinidad? And what happened to Mexico could very well happen to Barbados if we're not careful. Over to you, Marcy.
Yes, very, very well said, Kimar. Kimar, I know, I mean, I want to say to Barbadians, if you have not bought Kimar's book, that I am encouraging you to support him. You know, Miss McLean, he does a lot of research for a young man, and this is what he does. He doesn't, he has his business, he's an entrepreneur. And I want to, you see me put up his book. He doesn't ask me to do that. I do that for him because he comes on here and he spends a lot of time researching. And I know it's not easy. None of us, Miss McLean comes on here, we don't get any pay for it. But he's a young man, right? And so I want to encourage you to get his book and to support him. You can go to the marciareedshow.com, and you will find the book there. You can purchase it, and he will get the funds from that. Okay, or you can reach out to him directly here in Barbados. You can reach out to me, and if you don't have the number, and my number is there. Is there all about. So you can reach me, and we can get his number to you. Okay. But I mean, just so well said, well researched, and just so much. It's a minute to 10, and this is just one topic. People are asking about the president. Can we go to the president? Let's answer. We're gonna pick up Miss McLean. I don't know if you. We will have to see how Caswell is doing. He's not feeling well, and so we are continuing to pray for him, and he should be back soon.
Yeah, we can go back to that. We can go back to explore exactly what the Constitution says about. But as I said, I have Kimar's book, by the way, and I know he was working on a second, so I look forward to getting that because, as you said, but no, in terms of that whole issue, I think it's something we can discuss at another point in time. But before we quickly, I wanted to raise something because somebody, Kimar mentioned the situation with government required to reduce its spending. I go to the beach on mornings, as you know, Marcy, and this is now a couple months that I have seen I will call it the disappearance because I don't know of the National Conservation Commission used to have workers on the beach. They have now gone. I can tell you that tomorrow the staff of the BAMC will be meeting with the trade union because all of the staff there have been severed. And there is going to be a lot more of that. Now that translates into a number of people out of work in a situation where no new jobs are being created either in the private sector and so on. When Kimar mentioned the private sector, one of the things that we know a significant part of our private sector relies heavily on government for business.
Yeah.
This person, Adrian Knight, is saying, please offer solutions to problems identified. Mr. Knight, one of the big problems that we identified tonight was the level of borrowing. The question is, how do we, the government is, I just explained what government is doing to reduce, but that's creating another problem because when you under the dictates of the IMF and you have to cut to reduce the size of your statutory corporations, the transfers, to the monies government transfer to those agencies to pay wages and so on, and you cut it. I don't know at what point Mr. Knight joined us, but what Marcia and some of us reported on earlier would have been the initial outcomes of some strategic discussions, strategizing that took place in some breakout sessions, and what is being proposed there beyond making sure people understand some of these issues would be what kinds of solutions people can put on the table as what I would call people solutions, because in addition to waiting for government to do certain things, there are a number of things, as we said before, where Barbadians can leverage their numbers, their buying power, and so on to impact. And one of the areas we talked about was cost of living. I like to see the questions, but you would probably see me get a little bit animated because it would be nice as we articulate problems if persons like, I think it was a Mr. Knight could also share his thoughts on how we can solve the problems, because I certainly am not one to sit down and talk about problems only. Marcia would tell you that as a filmmaker, I have seen her work miracles in doing something that I have not seen anybody in the Caribbean do, which was to produce a film within 5 or 6 months. It was from the time they started to the time it premiered at the end of the year of return in Accra, Ghana. I sat down with some people recently and in 5 months came up with some ideas for some agro-processed products working with some business people from Suriname who came here with an idea which could not work. And I sat down with a former student of mine. And if you attended the recently held expo, what used to be BMEX, it was now called Thai Trade and Innovation Exhibition, you would have seen the result of that. So when Mr. Knight and others ask, I take personal umbrage when people don't offer. We have been working hard. Solutions have been proffered over and over again. I've heard in relation to education, Mrs. Corbin talk about a number of things. So, it would be nice to join hands, and
Yes.
where solutions have been put on the table, respond to those, critique them or whatever. But, it isn't that we just hear discuss, to use an expression that I like to use, discussing, describing, diagnosing, but we've also been deciding what can be done
Yes. Yeah.
to make a difference.
And I think, thank you so very well, Ms. McLean. We've gone over the 10 o'clock time, but this is a hot show tonight here. I have to tell Mr. Franklin that we're walking in his footsteps, but and I wish that he comes back really quickly. But Adrian, you probably joined very late, okay? But Adrian, we had on Saturday, we had what's called the nonpartisan National Strategy Planning meeting. And tonight we had two of those leaders did a review where, we met on Zoom and we had our breakout rooms and so on. And it was quite good. It's the first time, and we are seeking as citizens that we're coming up. I love Ms. McKean says people solutions. It's what we're coming up with, and so some of them. And so I think that's great, and it's a good question that you asked. But because of when you came in the program, you would not have known that. All right, so you can probably join us next week Saturday, right? And you will see the Zoom link. Review said, Marcia, we have the show hot every night. Yes, it's true. It's true. It's so true. It is so true. I tell you, I go to the supermarket, people telling me about the show. I go to the beach, people telling me about the show. Yeah. So, yeah. So, guys, we've gone over time, and we have not touched. I think I had too many things on. When we're talking about the debt and so on, I had too many things on the program, I think, but we're going to catch up on that. Guess what, guys? What's going to happen, Miss McLean and Kimar? We have the lawyer, and I need to get her name to come on to talk about the light and power situation. That's another very serious situation, opposition that we really need to talk about. And so she's given me a commitment on that for Friday
Miss
show.
Watson?
Miss Watson, thank you. What's her first name?
Trisha
Watson. Okay, attorney Trisha Watson is going to be coming on to talk about that issue with the Fair Trading Commission and Barbados Light and Power, which we don't know who if they're being fair to us, what's happening. And so she has a group that they're the conveners, and we've seen that they're trying to do a little fast one on them. So we have to rise up on that, people. We have to watch that, open our eyes like we did with the NIS and the pension. They're trying to slip something past us with this, with the electricity stuff. So, so please, we need you to log on and log on to Friday. On tomorrow night, we're going to continue a lot of this, and we want to answer this stuff about independence. This is bothering me. I am telling you, this is bothering me, but I don't have the time tonight. This thing about independence, because they need to do something. They need to do something with Bridgetown. They need to celebrate this. They're not going to because what, the people had a problem. They don't want to do it now. No, you know what? Let's talk about that tomorrow. All right. So we see you tomorrow. We want to talk about Guyana. Oh Lordy, so many things. All right, so see you tomorrow. I'm so sorry that we didn't get to do everything we promised. Thank you so much, Kimar. Thank you, Miss McLean. Miss McLean. Thank you so much. God bless you.
If you stay, Mrs., you have to deliver the husband.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. God bless you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Good night.